This video continues with Chapter 41 Wanda's Dance Partner Invitation. Marvel, loading the strongest anime templates. Chapter 41 Wanda's Dance Partner Invitation. After eating and returning to his room, he began to study magic on a daily basis. He had mastered all the magic in Harry's memory now, but that didn't mean he didn't have to continue studying. Through constant practice, he discovered that the power of a magic was not only related to his heart, that is, his mental thoughts, but also related to the degree of his research on this magic. For example, a simple full-body binding spell would not be a problem to restrain an ordinary person under normal circumstances, but it would be difficult to restrain a mutant like Wolverine whose strength exceeds that of ordinary people. But when he turned on Harry's bloodline, his spirit increased significantly, and the binding effect of the binding spell also increased significantly, and even Wolverine could not break free. If he didn't activate Harry's bloodline and wanted to increase the power of the whole body binding spell, he would have to spend time practicing and studying this magic in more depth. The same fire magic in the movie, when used by students, is a ball of flames, and when Principal Dumbledore uses it, it is a sea of fire. With the same powerful fire spell, Crabbe can only burn down a house, but Grindelwald can burn down the entire Paris. Of course, even if one practices magic to the level of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, the destructive power will definitely not be as good as that of a Saiyan. But Saiyans also have many weaknesses. Although their destructive power is strong, they will also be defeated when encountering some enemies with special abilities. Just like even if he becomes a Super Saiyan and can easily explode a planet, if he encounters a guy like Furiuchi who controls time and space, it will be quite a headache. Only by mastering more methods can you reduce your weaknesses. In the world of Marvel, humans, mutants, aliens, gods, demons, and demons from various dimensions have demonstrated too many abilities. The method is too simple, and unless it is extremely powerful, it will be easily targeted. Moreover, the magic in the Harry Potter world is not very powerful, just because the wizard's blood there has limits, and there is no limit to Hawking's future. If the spirit of the future is strong enough, it might not be impossible for him to cast a transformation spell and turn the moon into a mooncake. Clang, clang, clang. Just as Hawking kept casting transformation spells on the chair in front of him, sometimes turning it into a dog, sometimes turning it into a cat, there was a sudden knock on the door. "Hawking, are you in the room?" The girl's sweet voice came from the door. It was Wanda, who was already 13 years old. "In the room, come in." He stretched out his hand and threw the unlocking spell, and the locked door was immediately opened. Tonight the school will hold a bonfire dance in the woods behind to bid farewell to the seniors and seniors who are about to graduate and leave the school. Professor Kin asked me to inform you. Wanda, wearing a red sweater, walked up to Hawking excitedly with her hands behind her back and her head held high. Hawking smiled and rubbed her head. "Okay, I understand. Thank you for coming here to inform me. I will go there to participate in the evening." Girls usually mature earlier than boys, especially European and American girls. Wanda is only 13 years old now, but compared with the little Lolita 3 years ago, she has changed a lot. If he didn't know that she was really only 13 years old, Hawking would have thought that she was 15 or 16 years old. However, it cannot be generalized. For example, the Phantom Cat was about the same age as 12 when he was 15. Now he is 17, and he seems not to be as old as Wanda. "Well, Hawking, have you chosen your dance partner?" Wanda looked at Hawking with burning eyes. Hawking was stunned for a moment after hearing this. Dance partner? "No, I'm not interested in dancing." He had participated in this kind of bonfire farewell dance twice before, but he always brought Wanda and Pietro with him. Like those 8 or 9-year-old children, the whole party was basically eating and drinking. To be honest, the barbecue and various desserts at the dance are quite good. As for the dance part of the dance, basically only older children who have started to have sexual intercourse will participate. Most foreign children are precocious and fall in love very early. When he came to school 3 years ago, the Iceman and the little Naughty were already in a relationship, and there were many similar ones in school. Professors actually don't care much about this. Wanda's eyes suddenly lit up when she heard that Hawking had no dance partner. Hawking, I haven't found a dance partner yet. Please help me when the time comes, otherwise it will be embarrassing to have no partner. You don't have a dance partner? Hawking had a skeptical look on his face. Even though he didn't have much contact with those students, Pietro knew that Wanda was still very popular in school. Many boys of the same age and older had confessed to Wanda. He has never interfered. They are all people who have been here before. As long as they don't do anything too outrageous, it's not a big deal. Moreover, the more control you have at this age, the more rebellious you become. No one has invited me yet. Wanda spread her hands with some guilt. Hawking laughed and said, You must be too fierce. People are afraid of you. Even though Wanda was very good-tempered in front of him, she was actually not a good-tempered person in school. In addition, she had learned some magic skills taught to her by Hawking, and she was very good at playing tricks on people. Yes, during the past 3 years, Hawking would also play tricks on Wanda when he had free time and teach her some magic in the wizarding world. Wanda's magic comes from Sithorn, which is one of the 3 ancient powers. On the surface, it feels similar to ordinary telekinesis, but in fact it is actually a very abnormal power of thinking. It means that as long as she wants it, she can achieve it. Wanda in the main universe can directly use chaos magic to build an ideal town of her own. She can create the dead vision, and she can even give birth to 2 children out of thin air. There are also cases in other universes where all mutants disappeared with just 1 word from Wanda. Therefore, it is not difficult to learn the magic that Hawking taught her. She even casts the magic without the help of a wand. It's just that because the chaotic magic power that was stimulated is still very weak, the magic power displayed is not very powerful. There's nothing we can do about it. Most universes have Wandas, but not all Wandas in the universe are that powerful. The power of chaos magic comes from the mind. The more the mind is stimulated, the more powerful it can explode. Wanda Qiang in the main universe inspired her potential because of the miserable experience she had when she was a child, and then encountered the induction of the spiritual scepter. In addition, her brother and lover died later, and finally she absorbed the magic power of a top magician and got the Book of Darkness. But Wanda in this universe has lived a happy life since she was a child. She also joined a mutant school and made many friends. Even though she usually works hard to practice her abilities, she has little effect. In fact, even without Hawking's appearance, Wanda from the original 838 universe was not very strong, and her body was easily taken over by Wanda from the main universe. In the eyes of the Illuminati, she was only rated as a little witch with average strength. Chapter 42 Wanda Gravity Device. HMPH, how could I be so cruel? Did Pietro say bad things about me in front of you again? Next time I'll use the snot charm to make him look embarrassed in front of Katie. Wanda immediately looked angry when she heard this. Every time he managed to establish a good image in front of Hawking, he would be stabbed in the back by his brother Pietro. Oh, Pietro still likes Katie? Hawking's face suddenly showed a gossipy look. Katie is the phantom cat, but she is 4 years older than Pietro. Wanda folded her arms and said ruthlessly, yes. He also confessed his love to others, but unfortunately Katie thought he was too young and refused. After saying that, she grabbed Hawking's arm and shook it. Hawking, please help me, otherwise I will make a fool of myself tonight and Pietro will laugh at me again. Okay, but don't expect me to be a good dancer. I have no talent for that. Unable to withstand Wanda's coquettishness, Hawking finally agreed. By the way, how are you developing your abilities? I can make something weighing 100 pounds float. Wanda raised her chin proudly. Hawking's heart moved, and then he ordered Wanda, try using your ability on me. It's best to distribute it evenly, and then instead of floating up, press down with all your strength. Although Wanda didn't know what Hawking was going to do, she still obediently raised her hands and activated her abilities on Hawking. A streak of red chaotic energy evenly covered Hawking's body, making his body sink. Hey, this seems to have a pretty good effect. Feeling the pressure from chaos magic on his body, his eyes suddenly lit up. Different from the usual weight-bearing exercises that only target the body, Wanda's chaos magic applies pressure in all directions. Even the internal organs of his body will feel the pressure. Therefore, the effect of Wanda's chaos magic is actually the same as the effect of the gravity chamber he expected. It's a pity that it's still a little weak. It would be better if it were stronger. 100 kilograms of force exerted a training effect on his current physical body, but it did not reach its limit. It seems that if there is a chance in the future, it is better to get the psychic scepter to help Wanda enhance the chaos magic. That way, even if the gravity chamber cannot be built, it would be good to imitate Wanda's chaos magic. At this time, Hawking secretly had some plans in his mind. In fact, the effect of finding Phoenix Girl would not be bad, but he is a professor and has his own affairs to be busy with. How could he be willing to spare time every day to help him practice? Wanda, you see my brother helped you a little favor tonight. Can you also do a little favor for me? Hawking, who had an idea in mind, put his hands on Wanda's shoulders and showed what he thought was a very warm smile. Seeing Hawking, who was a little different from usual, Wanda asked in a fuzzy heart, Hawking, what do you want from me? Just take some time every night and come to my place. Hawking was only halfway through his words when he was immediately interrupted by Wanda with a blushing face. No, it's too fast. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Shouldn't we start from similarly? Before Wanda could finish her words, a brain collapsed on her forehead. What nonsense are you thinking about? I'm asking you to use your abilities to assist me in my practice like you just did, so that my practice will be more efficient than usual. It won't delay you for too long. 1 hour every night is just enough to exercise your abilities. Oh, that's it. After hearing what Hawking said clearly, Wanda was relieved, but also showed a little disappointment. I originally thought that Hawking had finally enlightened himself, but it turned out that he was still a piece of wood and had been practicing all day long. Nodding and agreeing to Hawking's conditions, Wanda suddenly asked Hawking before preparing to leave, well, since you have agreed to be my dance partner, someone else will invite you to be my dance partner. Don't worry, I probably won't go out until the dance starts soon, and besides you, I won't waste my time dancing with anyone else. Hawking waved his hand. That's good. If any other girl invites you, I will refuse it for you in advance. Wanda immediately nodded with satisfaction and left Hawking's room with light steps. But not long after she left the room, she was stopped by a petite girl. How's it going, Wanda? Does your brother Hawking have a dance partner? Has he promised to invite me to be his dance partner? This is a classmate of Wanda's age. Because he is obsessed with the beautiful scenery outside school every day, he also knows that Wanda is Hawking's sister. So I wanted to take the opportunity to see if I could get a sweet love that everyone would envy through Wanda's introduction. Wanda pretended to look regretful and replied, I have asked for you, but my brother said that he has to work hard to develop his abilities and has no interest in falling in love with anyone before graduation. So I don't plan to find anyone else to be my dance partner tonight. I'm just going to let my sister be the guest dance partner. You'd better accept the invitation from other boys as soon as possible. Okay, thank you, Wanda. This is the latest lipstick promised to you. The girl looked a little disappointed and took out a brand new lipstick and handed it to Wanda. This is her reward for asking Wanda to help with things. Soon after the girl walked away, a second girl stopped Wanda. How's it going, Wanda? Your brother Hawking? In this way, after walking around the school, she encountered a total of 8 girls who blocked her path, and she also used the same words and received various rewards. HMPH, you guys are the only ones who want to compete with me for Hawking. She returned to her room with a bunch of things in her arms. a look of pride on her face. "Wanda, would you be honored to invite you to dance with me tonight?" Just as she was opening the door and preparing to go back to her room to dress up for the bonfire dance in the evening, a handsome young man plucked up the courage to invite her to the dance roll. Wanda raised her hands, and the red chaotic magic suddenly lit up, scaring the young man and running away immediately. There are naturally many boys who invite her to dance, but in her eyes, these boys are just like her brother Pietro. They look very childish. Compared with Hawking, they are as good as the sky. It was precisely because of the huge contrast that she gradually developed a liking for Hawking, the brother adopted by her parents, at this young age. There is no blood relationship anyway, so instead of taking advantage of those classmates, it would be better to take advantage of yourself. It was Hawking who didn't seem to be interested in things like love, which gave her a headache, but at least before that, she had eliminated possible love rivals. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Hawking stopped practicing magic, changed into more formal clothes, and left his room. Thinking of the sizzling barbecue and various delicious desserts and snacks from the last bonfire dance, he was in a good mood and couldn't help humming a ditty. The dance is a great place. It's so fun. Chapter 43, Fooling Professor X. At midnight, the 2-hour bonfire dance ended, and Hawking returned to his room with a satisfied look on his face. The bonfire dance at the mutant school is actually quite interesting. All the students are mutants and have all kinds of weird abilities. Whenever one shows off their abilities together at the dance, it feels like participating in a magic feast. As for the dancing part, Wanda basically led him throughout the dance. After all, he has not taken a single class in the past 3 years, including dance, music, and art courses. Of course, the most satisfying thing is the food. For the annual bonfire dance, although the food in the cafeteria is actually quite good, after you've eaten and drank enough, you can go fool around a bit. Oh no, I'm going to talk to Professor X. If he wants to earn justice in New York City, he must say hello to Professor X, the principal. If we can get the support of the principal, the subsequent actions will be much simpler and a lot of unnecessary trouble can be avoided. As for how to persuade Professor X, he had already thought of a way to say it. Although he can't use the plots of his previous life as a guideline, he can still learn a thing or two, especially the personality and behavioral habits of each character, which basically won't change much and can be used as a reference. His IQ may not be very high, but if he makes a certain plan based on this information, the success rate should still be high. Even if he fails, it doesn't matter. With his current value, if he really secretly goes to New York to fight crime and earn justice points, then Professor X will not do anything to him even if he is unhappy inside. Because he knows that what Professor, good evening. In the principal's office, Hawking waved to Professor X with a smile on his face. When Professor X saw Hawking appear, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "How's it going? Did you enjoy your dinner tonight?" Because Hawking is such a big fan, he specially asked Huge to prepare more than 10 times more ingredients than before for the dance. Of course, quite satisfied, Hawking gave Professor X a thumbs up. For Professor X, he was still somewhat grateful in his heart. As a person who has traveled from another world, he has no special stance on mutants, humans, and the like. Because speaking of it, he doesn't even belong to Marvel. What he cares about most is Oleg, Elena, Wanda, and Pietro, who bring him warmth like family. Professor X helped Oleg and Elena find stable jobs, gave Wanda and Pietro a stable school environment, and allowed him to develop stably for 3 years. He also kept these in mind. Therefore, he is willing to make some repayments if he can. Just like this time, his main purpose is to earn justice points to unlock new protagonist templates and find ways to improve his own strength. By the way, he also wants to help mutants, which can be regarded as some reward for Professor X. He believes that a person can be self-interested, but he must also understand rewards and have a bottom line. Hawking, you came to me specifically. You must have something to tell me, right? After chatting for a few words, Professor X immediately turned to the topic. Based on his understanding of Hawking in the past 3 years, if nothing happened, Hawking, a masochistic maniac, would not come to chat with him. Hawking didn't talk nonsense when he heard this. Professor, after 3 years of hard work, I have now fully mastered my abilities. Oh, that's good news. Congratulations. Professor X suddenly showed a look of surprise on his face. Hawking is very strong, even without turning into a giant ape. This has been verified in the battle 3 years ago. It's just that Hawking couldn't fully control his abilities at that time. He could only use it for an hour. He would faint after using it. Under normal circumstances, he was stronger than a normal child. Now that Hawking has full control over his abilities, it means that the mutant school has welcomed another general, which he is naturally very happy about. So, Professor, I have something I want to talk to you about. What's up? Professor X had a curious look on his face. Hawking did not tell his plan first, but asked, Professor, as far as I know, we have been cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D. for 3 years. At present, it seems that the government is indeed much friendlier to mutants, but for ordinary humans, they are still very repulsive and afraid of mutants. Why is that? Hawking, this is normal. You must know that humans are naturally afraid of the dark and the unknown. Because they don't understand mutants, they always feel that all of us mutants are dangerous and may endanger them's life. So their fear of mutants is more of an instinct and does not mean that humans are inherently evil. We should not be anxious and do not hate them like Magneto. Time will tell everything, and one day humans and mutants will live in harmony. Professor X patiently explained to Hawking. He attaches great importance to Hawking, and is deeply afraid that Hawking will be like Pyro, unable to resist the temptation of Magneto, and step into the abyss. Fortunately, Hawking has his own ideas and has never been affected by Magneto, which makes him very happy. Professor, I think what you said makes sense, and I think so too. In fact, humans don't know that most mutants have very weak abilities and are basically not dangerous, not even as big a threat as a knife or a gun. It's just that they don't understand and they are afraid because of the unknown. But if there is an opportunity to let them understand mutants, let them know about mutants, and even make them like mutants, will humans' fear of mutants be greatly reduced? Hawking slowly expressed his thoughts. I mean, why don't we try to be superheroes and use our special abilities to help humans in need? So humans will understand that mutants are not also scary. We will do this through the media later. What he said was not completely deceiving Professor X. In the timeline of reversing the future, Professor at that time, many humans worshipped the mutants of the X-Men as idols, and the relationship between humans and mutants was greatly eased. It's just that Professor in the end, Kin lost control and unfortunately encountered Tianqi's awakening, and once returned to before liberation. Of course, the result Hawking wanted was not that kind. What he wants is to finally establish an existence similar to that of Walter International in the Black Robe Correctional Team. Those who can be saved will be saved naturally, and those who cannot be saved will rely on public relations to achieve the same effect. Not only mutants, but also aliens, superpowers, and the like can be brought in. Of course, you can't tell Professor X like this now. Chapter 44 The Noble Hawking. Listening to Hawking's talk and imagining a bright future for mutants, Professor X's heart began to waver. In fact, he has always had similar thoughts, but he always has some worries in his heart, because if the operation is not good, the result may be worse, and there are many factors to consider. The first is ability. Not all mutants' abilities are that stable, and one like Kin's is definitely not good. A bad ability may aggravate humans' fear of mutants. Secondly, not all mutants are close to humans. For example, Ororo doesn't like humans that much because of his childhood experience. Forcibly ordering Ororo to help humans will only be counterproductive. The last thing is IQ, whether you can become a superhero recognized by most humans. IQ and EQ are both important. If you don't know how to adapt, many things will be very troublesome. It was originally intended to make humans change their views on mutants, but the result is likely to make humans more afraid of mutants, and will also involve the currently peaceful school into disputes. Neither the stubborn Cyclops nor the free-spirited Wolverine will do this. After much deliberation, there were few teachers in the school who were suitable. The remaining X-Men who had not yet grown up were not qualified for this important task, so he had not considered it. I understand what you said, but Professor X shared his concerns with Hawking. But Hawking smiled when he heard this. Professor, what do you think of me? My abilities should be pretty good, and I'm not as busy as Teacher Kin and others who need to teach. You can use me to experiment first. Specifically, I will go to New York City in my own name to help those in need. After it has a certain effect, I will slowly reveal my identity. Listening to Hawking's well-founded and very feasible plan, Professor X fell into deep thought. You can give it a try. If it doesn't work, as long as Hawking doesn't disclose the mutant's identity, there shouldn't be any bad effects. Because he suddenly discovered that Hawking seemed to be a very suitable candidate. He has strong abilities and is very good at fighting. He is not lacking in IQ. He is also flexible, his heart is firm and not easily influenced by the outside world, and he has a kind heart. It's just that you are still a child, and this kind of thing is also dangerous. I think we can wait a few more years. His only concern was that he felt that letting a child take risks like this went against his original intention of establishing the school. Hawking also saw this and immediately pretended to be righteous and said, Professor, only if this kind of thing is started early will it be effective, so that mutants who are discriminated against in human society can live a better life. I never feel like a child, and to be honest, even if the professor doesn't agree, I will do it slowly because it's for the sake of the school and the entire mutant population. I, Hawking, am willing to take some risks. Okay, since that's the case, let's do as you say. If you need anything, you can tell me. Finally, Professor X nodded with some emotion. A 15-year-old child with such noble thoughts made him unmoved. Even if this matter fails in the end, he feels that with people like Hawking around, the relationship between humans and mutants in the future will eventually become what he expects. You don't need anything yet. If possible, Professor, you can consider acquiring a media organization first. I think the Daily Bugle is very good. Seeing Professor X agree, Hawking showed a bright smile on his face. If Professor X could read his mind and know his true future plans, he probably wouldn't be so happy. But in fact, he felt that his plan was truly beneficial to both humans and mutants. The world is never black and white. If it is too idealistic and does not consider reality, it will be difficult to achieve the desired results. The next day, late at night, watching the lights in the rooms outside the window go out, and the teachers and students gradually falling asleep, Hawking jumped from the window upstairs, and then jumped several times to the woods behind. To earn justice points, you must choose night. Although there are various events happening during the day, overall there are definitely not as many as at night. It is also more convenient to travel at night. Therefore, he will have to readjust his work and rest schedule. Most of the time, he chooses to go out at night and return to school during the day to eat and rest. This one is good. He picked a large tree of about the same thickness, jumped up and down a little, cut off the head and tail, and held it in his hand. Well, this position should be about the same. Facing south, he roughly calculated the distance in his mind. The muscles in his right hand bulged and he exerted force instantly, and the cylindrical tree trunk immediately shot out like a rocket. At the same time, he kicked his legs hard, disappeared from the spot, and appeared on the flying tree trunk. Walking on the pillar is Tao Beibai's specialty skill, and he can now do it easily without loading any templates. He can use firebolts and somersault clouds, but that requires loading Harry and Wukong templates. After returning from SHIELD 3 years ago, he tried to summon the somersault cloud with the Goku template loaded, and it actually happened. And because he has the Wukong template on his body, he can also ride on the somersault cloud normally and will not fall down due to impure souls. But under normal circumstances, he would not load the protagonist template easily. One of the two templates can greatly improve the combat power of the body, and the other can greatly improve the magic ability, but they can only be used for 1 hour a day, and you have to wait until the next day to use them again. If you use it easily, and one day you suddenly encounter a strong enemy and cannot defeat it, you will be in trouble. In the dangerous world of Marvel, never gamble on your luck. It's just that this pillar flying may be slightly exposed, and ordinary people will not be able to detect it. Large organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D. with satellite surveillance will definitely be able to detect it. But so what? Anyway, he was probably on the list of major organizations' attention 3 years ago. Now he is just flying as a pillar, which is nothing at all. Besides, he didn't go to the city to cause havoc, but to do good deeds, with Professor X's tacit approval behind it. Is there still such an operation? In the school surveillance room, Cyclops looked at Hawking's back on the screen as he stepped on the tree trunk and disappeared, and he was also completely stunned. Although the school is covered by Professor because Professor X can sense living creatures, but cannot detect some high-tech mechanical products. Today it happened to be Cyclops's turn to be in charge of guarding the control room, so he also saw the entire process of Hawking's flight. After reacting, he immediately went to Professor X to report the matter. After listening to Cyclops' report, Professor X was not surprised. You don't have to worry about Hawking's affairs. I know everything. Chapter 45 Nick Fury's Trump Card. Chapter 45 Nick Fury's Trump Card SHIELD. Headquarters, Tri-Wing Building, Director's Office. Carol, how are the preparations for your Smart Weapon Observation and Response Center going? Nick Fury asked with a smile to the short-haired woman opposite who was holding an orange cat. This is one of his few trusted friends and his wife Maria's best friend. He was once the ace pilot of the army. After experiencing the Kree invasion together, he has been responsible for preparing a special department dedicated to dealing with aliens, the Sword Bureau. This time it was rare to come back from the base in outer space to see him. What Carol was holding in his hands was not an ordinary orange cat, but the most dangerous alien creature, the element-devouring beast. His blind eye was caused by being accidentally scratched by this element-devouring beast. We are basically on the right track. I heard from Maria that you ran into trouble in the past 2 years. Do you need my help? Carol stroked her pet's head. A hint of concern flashed in her eyes. Nick Fury immediately waved his hand. I can solve the small problem myself. You should focus on the Sword Bureau and the Skrulls. Our biggest enemies are the aliens who are much more advanced than our civilization. In his mind, the problems of the Earth are not a big problem. Although mutants are powerful, they are only a small part, and most of them are not as good as his well-trained agents. What really made him feel uneasy was those alien civilizations, especially the aggressive Kree. Through the information that Maria learned during the years when she lived on the Kree home planet of Hala, he deeply felt the power of the Kree civilization and the cruelty of the universe. For a civilization-level planet like Earth, the Kree would not know how to destroy it. And how many have been conquered? In the past few years, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been expanding its power crazily, hoping to make S.H.I.E.L.D. the most powerful force on Earth, and then cooperate with Sword Bureau to prevent possible alien invasions in the future. He never puts his hope in the hands of those dead politicians because in their eyes, besides money, they are profit. They are good at internal fighting, but they are useless when they really do things. If you need help, you can always come to me. Gugu and Talos can both help you. After chatting with Nick Fury for a while, Carol left S.H.I.E.L.D. holding her pet Gugu. Not long after Carol left, Hill walked in holding the computer. Director, these are some pictures just taken by the satellite. It's him. The picture shows Hawking standing on a tree trunk and flying towards New York City. In that battle 3 years ago, Nick Fury had already listed Hawking as his focus, second only to Professor X and Magneto, and he had been trying his best to collect information about Hawking. However, it is only known that Hawking was adopted by a couple during the Sokovia War 3 years ago, and then came to New York to join a mutant school. Before that, due to the war, no other information could be found. Over the past 3 years, through cooperation with the X-Men, he has gained a better understanding of mutant intelligence. Sometimes, in order to obtain information, he even directed and staged several crises to seek help from the X-Men, just to collect more detailed information on every threatening mutant. When he told Carol that he could deal with mutant problems, he wasn't bragging, but he really didn't think it was a big problem. If a conflict that is difficult to balance does break out, as long as he is prepared, the advantage will be his. For Professor and many of his subordinates, such as Cyclops, Storm, Kin, and other mutants, are indeed very powerful when they release their abilities, but if they are prepared in advance, including sneak attacks and long-range sniping, it is not difficult to deal with them before their abilities explode. The more dangerous ones are Wolverine and Death Girl. They cannot be killed by thermal weapons, but there are many ways to trap them. As for Magneto, just let Captain Marvel do the side push. Apart from Magneto, there are few who can beat him. What really threatened him was actually Hawking, who could transform into a giant ape. Until now, he had not figured out how many abilities the opponent had, what his limits were, and what his weaknesses were. He was already so strong when he was 12 years old, and now 3 years have passed. The key point is that he can't get Hawking's information at all, because the X-Men who have cooperated with him are very strict about Hawking's information. He only vaguely knows that Hawking's strength does not seem to be maintained forever. Now that the other party suddenly left the mutant school and flew to New York City in this way, how could he not be worried? After thinking for a moment, he immediately picked up the phone and dialed Professor X's number. Professor Charles, I found out that Hawking appeared here. Director Fury, don't worry, nothing is wrong. It's just that little Hawking reads some comic books and wanted to use his abilities to help some people in need. He's still a kid after all, and you know, he might get bored of it after a few days. Nick Fury was relieved when he heard Professor X's explanation on the other end of the phone. If you just act as a superhero to fight criminals, of course it doesn't matter. At most, you can destroy some public facilities, which is not a big problem. But we can't keep going like this. Putting down the phone in his hand, he turned to Hill and asked, "How's it going over there, Magneto?" According to the intelligence sent by our agents lurking in the Brotherhood of Mutants, Magneto has recruited a new mutant who can sense the level of mutants. Now he is recruiting high-level mutants through this mutant. Agent Hill reported the information he had prepared long ago. Not every mutant has such a sense of identity. Mutants are just humans with special X genes in their bodies. They are still humans in essence. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires, so they can be recruited into agents by S.H.I.E.L.D. using various means. The Brotherhood of Mutants is an organization that will recruit any mutant who has strength. If you want to sneak in, you only need to show off your abilities. Therefore, Nick Fury has always been aware of the movements of Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants. On the other hand, Professor X's mutant school is more troublesome. Firstly, the school basically only recruits underage mutants. Secondly, Professor information can only be obtained from the X-Men through cooperation. This Magneto will definitely cause trouble sooner or later. After listening to Hill's report, Nick Fury frowned. He knew that Magneto's thoughts were a time bomb for humans, and they might explode at some point. How's the research on the antidote going? Initial progress has been made. We have found a special gene in the blood extracted from Jimmy's body. It is this special gene that allows him to nullify mutant abilities. As long as we spend a little more time, maybe we can make special weapons that turn mutants into ordinary people. Hill slid the computer and a projection appeared on the wall, and the photo on the projection was of a bald little boy. Very good, as long as we can make weapons that can target mutants, then whether it is Professor X, Magneto, or that Hawking, it will no longer be a problem. Upon hearing the good news, the corners of Nick Fury's mouth gradually raised. This game of three-party constraints is about to end, and it will become a dominant one. Chapter 46 Sin City. New York City, upstate, Bronx, in an abandoned park. Two black men in hip-hop attire were beating a Mexican woman. You mean old Latin American woman, you still dare to resist when I ask you to hand over your wallet. I will teach you to remember a little better today. Just as the two were fighting, a sharp sound broke through the air suddenly from a distance, causing them to subconsciously raise their heads. Just the next second, there was a question mark in their minds. Walter Falk. What did they see? They saw a black spot in the sky in the distance slowly getting bigger. When they got closer, they found that the black spot was actually a tree trunk with a diameter of at least 1 meter. If it's just like this, it's nothing, but there's actually a person standing on the big tree. A man stood on a tree trunk and flew in the sky. The two of them rubbed their eyes and felt that they must have slept too much before going out, so they were hallucinating now. But then they discovered that it was not an illusion at all, because with a roar, the tree trunk penetrated directly into the lawn about 10 meters away from them. The man standing on the tree trunk jumped up in advance, flipped 360 degrees in the air like a gymnast, and landed firmly on the ground. The tree trunk inserted into the lawn and splashed soil on their faces. It was so real. The calculation is correct. The landing error is less than 5 meters, perfect. Looking at the surrounding environment, Hawking nodded with satisfaction. During previous vacations, he had specifically visited the Bronx. This abandoned park was the best place for him to land. There were so many people living nearby that it would be difficult to spot him. There are 5 boroughs in New York: the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. Manhattan is a famous wealthy area and a symbol of New York City. Many large companies are headquartered in Manhattan, such as Tony Stark's Stark Group. On the east side of Manhattan, separated from Manhattan by the East River, is the borough of Queens. Queens is the largest borough among the 5 boroughs of New York, has the second largest population, and is second only to Manhattan in terms of economic level. It is also home to some well-known companies, such as Austin Industries. Bordering Queens to the south is Brooklyn, the most populous borough in New York and the birthplace of Captain America Steve Rogers. Of course, there is no Captain America in this universe. There is only Captain Carter. The southernmost part of New York is Staten Island, which has the least population and is relatively far away. It can be regarded as a small island in the sea by itself, and the sea scenery is relatively good. Finally, there is the Bronx, where Hawking is now located, bordering Manhattan and located at the northernmost edge of New York City. The mutant school was built in the suburbs further north of the Bronx, and the place where Oleg and Alina worked and lived was also at the junction of the Bronx and the suburbs. It belonged to a company owned by Professor X's family. I've often heard that the most dangerous place in New York is Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, which is where Daredevil often hangs out. But after 3 years of getting to know Hawking, he discovered that although Hell's Kitchen is dangerous, there are only a few blocks there. The real number of crimes has to be in the Bronx. Hell's Kitchen is just a slum in Manhattan, but the Bronx is a slum in New York. Because most African Americans and Hispanics in New York live in this area, the crime rate in the Bronx is one of the highest in the entire United States, and even the entire world. Especially the area south of the Bronx is notoriously chaotic, comparable to Vice City in the game. Therefore, this place naturally became Hawking's first choice for earning justice points. It is close to the school and has a high crime rate. Is this a good start? After landing gracefully, Hawking quickly discovered 2 stunned black men holding purses over there, as well as a middle-aged woman lying on the ground with a bruised nose and swollen face. With cheerful steps, he came to the two black men. I kindly suggest that you return the purse to her. Fake oil. The two black men looked at each other, then took out the dagger from their pockets and stabbed Hawking in the stomach. This actually surprised him. He thought the two guys would be frightened when they saw the scene just now, but he didn't expect them to be so brave. In fact, he only came here occasionally during holidays to inspect the terrain. Although he knew something about the crime situation here, he only heard about it through newspapers and some hearsay. He didn't know that the gangsters who had been living at the bottom here were living a life of today and no tomorrow. They might die in the sewers at some point, and their mentality had long been different from that of normal people. In their eyes, although Hawking was a little incredible, so what? If he dared them to return the trophies that could be used to buy powder, they would first ask about the knife in his hand. The key is that Hawking does not have a gun in his hand. In their eyes, guns are understandably the real deterrent weapon. Compared to these little gangsters, those at the top who have lived a good life through hard work are more precious about their lives. Then don't blame me. He reached out and grabbed the knife-holding wrists of the two black men like lightning and gave them a strong squeeze. Crack! Along with the sound of two bones breaking, the two black men also let out shrill screams. He would never show mercy to those who wanted to kill him. Besides, there are no reporters or other people here, and there is no need to show off, so there is nothing to worry about when taking action. Let's go quickly. He kicked the two black men twice in the stomach, causing them to vomit blood and fall to the ground. Hawking picked up the leather bag and threw it to the middle-aged woman over there who had just gotten up. Thanks. The middle-aged woman picked up the purse, thanked her, and ran away, fearing that what would happen next would implicate herself. Hawking didn't care when he saw this. His purpose was for justice, not gratitude. Poor guy. He reached out and searched the two black men and found less than $20, which made him slightly unhappy. The school was in charge of food and housing, so he was naturally embarrassed to ask the ogles for pocket money. Putting $20 in his pocket and ignoring the two black men who fainted, Hawking jumped up and disappeared into the park, reaching the roof of a 6-story building on a nearby street. Flavy. He stretched out his hand and cast a transformation spell on his sportswear. The sportswear instantly turned into a domineering golden armor. He picked up a fallen leaf floating in the wind, turned it into a golden helmet, and put it on his head. Since you want to establish a superhero image, you must have an iconic outfit. The more fashionable and handsome you are, the more you can attract public attention and get more people's admiration. Even wearing a helmet is not to reduce trouble, but to create a sense of mystery. This is enough to explode when the identity is finally revealed. In addition to earning justice, all he did was to pave the way for the future of Superhero International Corporation. He is not such a childish person just pretending to be cool. Chapter 47 The Golden Armored War God Hawking appears. Start working. Jumping on the roof of a building that is generally not very high, Hawking began to look for criminal incidents that fit his identity. The first time you appear, you can't just deal with some petty theft like just now. That would be too much. As a slum area in New York, the Bronx is naturally not filled with high-rise buildings like Manhattan. Instead, it is generally small buildings with 5 or 6 floors. This also allows Hawking to see everything happening below more clearly. Fights, brawls, thefts, and even murders are not uncommon in the Bronx. In the hour that Hawking was searching, he saw no fewer than 8 cases. It's just that he didn't take action even once because none of them met his requirements. He knows very well that he is not a true messenger of justice, and he also knows what he wants. There are too many crimes happening in this world. It is impossible for him to take care of every one of them, nor can he blame himself for the crime just because he did not take action. Otherwise, sooner or later, he will have a mental breakdown. The principle he has always adhered to is that if he sees something bad happening and goes to help, it must be voluntary. Maybe it's sympathy and compassion, maybe it's the need for profit, but it's definitely not forced. There is no need to feel guilty if you don't help. Because it was the perpetrator who caused the consequences, not him, the bystander. Respect the fate of others, let go of the complex of helping others, and avoid being moved by yourself. This sentence sometimes sounds a bit cruel, but it is not necessarily protecting yourself. Otherwise, not only will you be harmed, but the people who truly care and love you will also be harmed. Especially now in a dangerous world like Marvel and in a high-risk area like New York. Similarly, if he himself is in danger and someone comes to help him, he will be grateful. If no one helps, he will not resent other people. What he should resent is the person who caused danger to him. Found it, the bank robbery that I love to hear about. After an hour of wandering, he finally found a crime that met his requirements on a street in the South Bronx. In the speeding van, 4 gangsters armed with submachine guns were arrogantly firing towards the police car chasing after them. Facing the police who could only fight back with pistols, they showed no fear at all. One gangster even opened the sunroof of the van and got out with an RPG boom. As the robber pressed the launch button, the police car that was chasing him the most immediately turned into a ball of sparks. With that little salary for a month, what are you trying to do with your life? The gangster laughed arrogantly and got back in again. Maybe it was because they were afraid of the powerful firepower of the gangsters, or maybe because several police cars were blown up in a row, and the police cars behind obviously didn't dare to pursue them so closely. If the van escapes sight, it will be almost impossible to find them and recover the money robbed from the bank in the chaotic South Bronx. It's 2003, and this is not the bustling Manhattan area. There are not so many surveillance cameras on the streets. Get rid of this group of policemen and drive to the planned transfer point. Then we will change to another car and go back to share the money. The boss of the robbers put down the RPG, opened the 5 large bags in the car, looked at the wads of US dollars inside, laughed, and gave instructions to the driver. When the other robbers heard this, they immediately seemed to be in a state of excitement. The submachine guns in their hands fired wildly, causing the police car behind them to pursue even slower. However, just when they thought they could completely get rid of the police car and successfully end the robbery, a golden figure suddenly fell from the sky and landed directly in front of them. Thus, the driver subconsciously stepped on the brakes, and the robber boss behind him immediately roared, "Kill him. Now is the time of life and death with the police. Once you stop, it will be troublesome." As for the van used for robbery, he found someone to modify it in advance. It is much stronger than a normal van. It can easily knock someone over without worrying about problems with the car. Sup? Facing the van that was speeding towards him at full speed, Hawking was not surprised at all. With all his luck, he just stretched out a hand and easily forced the van to stop. And after forcing the van to stop, he lifted it up, causing the van filled with 6 gangsters to spin 2.5 times in the air. In fact, if you want to quickly deal with these robbers, you don't need to go to such trouble. Just standing on the roof of the building and firing an air bomb from a distance can blow the van into pieces. But that was not the result Hawking wanted. People couldn't see him at all and thought someone had shot another rocket. Sure enough, the scene of him falling from the sky wearing golden armor and flipping off the robber's van instantly attracted the frightened citizens on the street, and the bold ones started to pick up their mobile phones to record the scene. Damn it, monster! The overturned van obviously did not make all the robbers lose their fighting ability. The robber boss, whose face was full of glass shards, opened the door with another robber and fired wildly at Hawking with a submachine gun. That's it. A sneer appeared on Hawking's face, and his hands suddenly turned into afterimages, catching the bullets fired at him one by one. Hexionrin with 120 combat power can catch the bullet shot by Lan Kai with his bare hands. With his current combat power of more than 140, it will naturally be easier to catch it. How can this be? The two robbers who had finished firing the bullets were so frightened that they froze in place as they watched Hawking open his hands and a particle bullet fall on the ground. The boss wanted to go to the van to get the RPG, but before he could turn around, he felt a pain in his back and fainted to the ground. It was Hawking who knocked out the two robbers. As a righteous superhero, of course he cannot appear too cruel, he can just knock him out, and he must kill when no one is nearby. The police, who were about to be thrown away on the other side, finally drove over. When they got out of the car and saw the overturned van and the knocked-out robber, they were stunned for a moment, and then they immediately pulled out their pistols and pointed them at Hawking. "Don't move. Raise your hands." "Who are you?" "Mars." Deliberately using amplification spell to leave a thunderous self-introduction, Hawking instantly loaded the Wukong template and shouted into the air, "Somersault Cloud." Under the stunned eyes of the police and citizens watching the excitement on the street, he jumped up onto the somersault cloud and disappeared into the sky while stepping on the somersault cloud. Of course, you have to have a name and slogan, and it's best to say it yourself in advance. Otherwise, if you wait for the public to pick it up for you, you don't know what will happen. Although, when he just said that sentence, he was filled with shame, but in order to achieve the best effect, he still gritted his teeth and pretended to say it, still using a very solemn and godlike tone. There is no way most ordinary people in this world just do this. Moreover, they can understand the name God of War, similar to Ares, the god of war, who is also one of the gods in the Western mythology system. Chapter 48, Judgment of Justice. We still need to research the Wukong technique as soon as possible. After a successful appearance, Hawking stepped on some assault clouds and quickly hid in a deserted park, waiting for the Wukong template to finish loading. Although the Wukong template greatly improves combat effectiveness, it also comes with an extremely fast flying tool called Somersault Cloud. However, due to the interference of Wukong's character, it is not suitable for him to continue to fight criminals to earn justice points. Maybe the newly established image of a noble and noble person will instantly collapse into a bad image. Therefore, Wukongshu, the ability to use Kai to fly, is very important. If he could do the air dance just now, the effect of pretending might be even better. It's just that Wukong Jutsu is a move of the Crane Senryu style. The 13-year-old Wukong has not yet encountered Tianjin rice and dumplings, and has never seen Wukong Jutsu, so naturally he doesn't know how to practice it. This is different from Kai Yuan Slash and Kai Control Bomb. Kai Yuan Slash is the compression and rotation of Kai at a glance. Kai Control Bomb is the control of Kai Bomb by the mind. If you study more based on the principles, you can figure it out. Not too difficult. But Wukong Jutsu can make people fly. Human beings can still use external tools to accomplish this ability, and those air principles cannot be applied to the study of Wukong technique at all. However, after 3 years of gradually becoming more proficient in Kai, he also had some vague ideas. He believed that given a little more time, it would not be impossible to figure it out. Mainly because he had previously focused all his energy on improving his combat effectiveness, especially the research on Kai Yuan Slash. Krillin, who has a combat power of 75,000, used the move Ki Yuan Slash to cut off Frieza's tail in his second form, which had a combat power of 1 million. If Frieza hadn't dodged in time, he might have been able to dismember Frieza on the spot. In other words, with the power of Ki Yuan Slash, if it hits, it can kill enemies that are at least 10 times stronger than itself. Even Captain Marvel would probably be hit by his current Kai Yuan Slash. He definitely needs to spend more time on this BUG move. It's such a waste of money. At the same time, he thought about the large amount of dollar bills that had been spilled out of the van after it overturned. If he had been faster just now, he would have had a chance to use the transformation spell to take those dollar bills away, but to be on the safe side and to better shape his own image, he gave up in the end. Anyway, he felt that there would be many opportunities in the future about there. When the Wukong template time was over, Hawking jumped up and continued tonight's action. But this time he didn't pick any more, but solved one as soon as he found one. It's just that he always walked away after solving the problem, without even having a chance to thank the other party, nor did he give his name again. It's enough to shout the slogan once, but if you shout it too many times, it will seem to be a loss of status. In this way, it lasted until 5 o'clock in the morning, and he solved nearly 20 incidents, ranging from theft to murder. The efficiency is still not high enough. Standing on the roof of the building on the street, Hawking looked at the progress bar on his panel and frowned. The South Bronx is indeed chaotic, and there are many chaotic incidents, but they are all distributed in various parts of the city, and many of them do not happen outside. Incidents such as homicides, home invasions, and gang fights mostly occur inside buildings, abandoned factories, and basements. He jumped on the roof to look for these, but it was really not that easy to find. In order to improve efficiency, he tried to borrow a police calling machine. However, it was later discovered that many incidents were over by the time the police call machine rang. In the past, the police mostly ended the incidents and were not as efficient as searching for them on their own. Crucially, he also discovered something very important. That is, the justice value and income of everything he does are different, and the gap is not small. Among them, the incident that gives the most justice value is the kind of life-saving incident. It's like he caught a thief who broke into a house. Even if the thief stole 100 million, he would only be given a little justice if he stopped it. And if the thief was about to kill someone with a knife, but was stopped by him, then there would be 100 points of justice. In other words, petty theft, and even many things that are very bad in the eyes of the public, if they do not involve killing, will give very little justice value. Even in the bank robbery incident in which he appeared, if the robbers did not intend to kill anyone from the beginning to the end, and just robbed and ran away, the justice value of catching them is not much different from catching a guy on the side of the road grabbing a lollipop. There is another thing, and that is the panel's determination of justice. As long as it is something he thinks is justice, then it is justice. This fact makes him happy, but it also gives him restrictions. That is, he cannot deliberately create events to increase the justice value. For example, if you push a person into the water, rescue him when he is about to suffocate, then push him into the water again, rescue him again, push him into the water again, and repeat this, there is no justice at all. Because when he had this idea in his mind, he had already judged in his heart that this was not a just thing, but a bad thing done for the sake of justice. So naturally there was no justice. So, in the next period of time, he has two things to do. First, improve the efficiency of finding events, not only outdoors, but also indoors. Secondly, he can't take action when he encounters an incident. Since it wastes time and earns less justice points, petty theft and the like can be ignored directly. The focus is on events that are helpful to his image and have more justice points. Perhaps we can go to Queens to look for Peter Parker sometime. If he remembered correctly, Spider-Man has a spider sense. In addition to being able to sense danger, he can also be sensitive to events happening within a certain range around him. This also causes Spider-Man to be often late on his way to work, school, and appointments because his moral standards prevent him from turning a blind eye to those events. Of course, Spider-Man in different universes have different abilities in this regard. But it doesn't matter, it's definitely more efficient than him looking for it alone. If it's a small incident, let Spider-Man solve it by himself. If it's a bigger incident, let Spider-Man notify him to solve it. And if he wants to establish an international superhero company in the future, Spider-Man is also one of the people he plans to invite. It is certainly impossible for a superhero like Tony Stark who has the advantage of money to join his company, but for a civilian superhero like Spider-Man who is short of money, there is still a lot of hope for early contact. It's almost time. Go back and have breakfast and go to bed. After rubbing his belly, Hawking jumped and disappeared, heading towards the abandoned park in the North Bronx where he first came. Dawn arrives and darkness recedes. Even the chaotic South Bronx becomes quiet at this time. It is a waste of time to stay here any longer. It is better to go back and have breakfast to fill your stomach and go to bed. Chapter 49 Daily Bugle. Let's go. Returning to the park again, the two black gangsters had disappeared. They probably went to the hospital after waking up, or they might have been dragged away by the police. Hawking pulled out the tree trunk stuck in the ground, threw it out again, and then stepped on the trunk back to the mutant school. Good morning, Professor. You got up so early. As soon as he entered the cafeteria, he saw Professor X sitting in a wheelchair who seemed to be waiting for him. Obviously, Professor X was very concerned about his situation last night. I asked people to purchase a lot of ingredients overnight. You must be hungry after not eating anything all night. Professor haha, then I'm not welcome. Hawking's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he immediately sat down and started devouring it. Jumping up and down on the rooftops of the city all night is a kind of training, and it consumes a lot of energy. When they were almost done eating, after listening to Hawking's narration, Professor X also showed a satisfied smile on his face. He felt that Hawking did much better than he expected. He not only used his abilities to save those humans, but also specially created a full-fledged character image. This will definitely have a great positive effect on the change of mankind's attitude towards mutants in the later period. He can already imagine that if the god of war created by Hawking is really highly respected by the human public in the future, once Hawking admits that he is a mutant, it will inevitably greatly change the perception of mutants in the hearts of the public. Very well, Hawking, you did a great job. Yesterday, I followed your instructions and had the Daily Bugle taken down. If you think it should be manipulated, you can go directly to the person in charge there, John Jameson. What, so fast? Now it was Hawking's turn to be shocked. He had just made the suggestion to Professor X the night before, but Professor X had already won the Daily Bugle yesterday. It can only be said that Professor X's family strength is much stronger than he imagined. You woke me up the night before yesterday. You were right. I should have noticed the power of the media earlier. Professor X smiled. Even if Hawking's superhero plan fails, having a media that can report some positive news about mutants can still change some human opinions. So yesterday he used a lot of connections and spent a lot of money to buy the Daily Bugle from John Jameson and made John Jameson his worker. Get some rest this afternoon, and I'll go talk to him. Hawking was naturally very happy that Professor X directly handed over control of the Daily Bugle to himself. Because that also means that in the eyes of Professor it seems that the high IQ business he has been running in recent years has begun to take effect. It is not easy to open an international superhero company like the one in Black Robe Picket. Even if you get a lot of money and don't have the corresponding connections to enter the capital circle, you still won't be able to start it. There is no point in being strong at all. Unless you are strong enough to fight against the entire world and enslave the entire human race on your own, you still have to abide by some rules. If the method is too bad, then in the end he will become like Magneto, a being that everyone shouts about, and he will be beaten by various superheroes as villains. The water on the Earth is very deep, especially the 838 universe is very different from the main universe. It is not known how many powerful existences are hidden. Besides, he is not alone. There are people like Wanda, Pietro, Oleg, and Alina who are like family members. Therefore, Professor X's recognition and trust in him are very important. Because in addition to being a mutant, with Professor X helping behind, many things become easier. Professor, get me a camera. I can use it. After finishing breakfast, he said something to Professor X, and he left the cafeteria and returned to his room. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Hawking woke up and turned on his computer as soon as possible. In this era, although most ordinary people still read news mainly through newspapers and television, but in fact, most news can already be viewed through the internet. Sure enough, he soon found a lot of news related to him on the internet, and also saw videos shot by passersby and various messages. Some people say that the video must be fake. Some say that the golden armor is so handsome, and the name of the golden god of war is so cool, and some say that there is a god in this world. Even extremists say that this is the end of mankind, so gods have come to Earth. Anyway, it's a lot of mess, and it's all about anything, but it's getting popular, and because it's about crime prevention, the reviews are mostly positive. After washing up, he first went to the battle simulation room to take some photos with the camera, and then went to Cyclops to borrow his modified Harley motorcycle. Broad daylight is not suitable for tree flying in the city strong enough. Pressing the special button modified on the handlebar, the speed of the motorcycle instantly exceeded the limit and doubled, which made Hawking couldn't help but let out a sigh of admiration. If there had been such a motorcycle in the previous life, it would have been extremely popular. Speeding all the way, this time he did not stop in the Bronx, but went directly to the news building of the Manhattan Daily Bugle. That armored man? You said you want him to be on the front page of our newspaper tomorrow. A clown who hides his head and shows his tail. How can such a person be on the front page of our newspaper? I have already put that news on the 5th page today. Jonah Jameson looked at Hawking sitting opposite, laughed and waved his hands, obviously disapproving of his ridiculous suggestion. But Hawking slapped his big hand on the table. It's not the armored man, it's the god of war, and Mr. Jameson, please understand the situation. This is not a suggestion, but an order. Mr. Charles should have told you that my orders are his orders, and you just need to execute them. But this definitely has no sales. The front page should be last night's private meeting between Tony Stark and the new movie queen at the hotel. Everyone likes to see that. Jonah Jameson replied with a somewhat uncomfortable expression. He now regrets that he sold the Daily Bugle that he worked so hard to build, and Charles actually sent such a guy who knew nothing to point fingers. But there is no way. Competition in this industry is fierce now. He looks good on the surface, but in fact he is carrying huge debts. If he fails, he may go bankrupt, and Charles gives too much. Chapter 50 News Wizard Hawking. There are tidbits about Tony Stark almost every day. If you write about it and others will write about it, how can you be competitive? On the way here, I saw newspapers in the hands of many people, all reporting the events of last night. You should ask your staff to see the sales of your 5th edition so far today. Seeing Jonah Jameson's reluctance, Hawking patiently explained. He still values Jonah Jameson quite a bit. To be able to found the Daily Bugle on his own and develop it to this extent, he definitely has some skills. Maybe Jonah Jameson's work ethic isn't very high, and what's reported in the news isn't that true, as can be seen from the various Spider-Man noir. But what he values is this about the other party. His true moral level is too high, and he really doesn't need someone who only pursues the authenticity of news. Because the news he asks the Bugle Daily to release in the future cannot all be so true. When necessary, all kinds of falsehoods and exaggerations are also indispensable. Check me the sales volume of today's 5th edition so far. After hearing this, Jonah Jameson picked up the phone with suspicion and called the female secretary outside the office door. After a while, the female secretary called back and reported, "Boss, the 5th edition has been sold out as of now sold out." Jonah Jameson was stunned for a moment, then immediately stood up from his chair and roared into the phone, "Quickly let Eddie come to my office. The armored man will be on the front page tomorrow. I want the armored man's photo." In his eyes, nothing is as important as sales volume. As long as the sales volume is good, not to mention the armored man, even the masked man can do it. Soon, a young reporter with a camera hanging around his neck rushed in. "Eddie, write me a report about that armored man, and then I don't care what method you use, whether you spend money or find connections. Get me some photos of that guy." Seeing Eddie, the Daily Bugle's best reporter, Jonah Jameson immediately stood up and started giving orders. Now that he was working, he had completely forgotten about Hawking's existence. "Boss, should you write something positive or something negative?" Eddie asked. Jonah Jameson stared. "Of course it's negative. It's more interesting to write negative things. You still have to ask me about this kind of thing." It was written that the armored man was hiding his head and tail. Maybe he was in a group with those bank robbers. They fought over the uneven distribution of the stolen goods, and finally ran away when they saw the police coming. "Yes, just write it like this. You can polish the specific details." "Yes, boss." Eddie was not surprised when he heard this and nodded immediately. He knew the personality of his boss best and asked just in case. But just as he was about to turn around, he was stopped by a voice. "No, you can't write like that. I want you to write all positive reports for me." Turning around, he saw a strange young man sitting opposite the boss who had been silent. "Who are you?" "I am your boss's boss. If you don't obey my orders, you will be one of the unemployed by this time tomorrow." Hawking stood up and smiled. Eddie immediately turned to look at his boss, Jonah Jameson, who twitched the corner of his mouth. "Do as he says. I'll tell you how to write tomorrow's news. The title will be something like this: Shocked, Gods Came to Earth to Save Mankind. It's scary that someone can catch a bullet with his bare hands. Incredibly, a white cloud capable of manned flight appears in the Bronx. Then the content will praise the god of war to death. You can write him as God. Anyway, the purpose is to make everyone think that he is a trustworthy superhero." After saying that, Hawking took out a stack of posed photos from his pocket and threw them on the table. "This is a picture of the god of war. Use whichever one suits you best. It would be a shame if you didn't become a reporter." Jonah Jameson picked up the photo on the table and looked at Hawking with admiration, feeling as if he had met a close friend. None of the 3 news headlines mentioned the name God of War just now, but they have highlighted all the key points. The key is just to take a glance and want to click in immediately to see what is going on. It's amazing. He decided that the future headlines of the Daily Bugle would all use this format. After staying in the Daily Bugle news building for a while and finalizing the headlines for tomorrow's newspaper, Hawking drove his motorcycle to Queens. At present, except for some young people, everyone still prefers to read news in newspapers, so the role of the Bugle Daily is still not small. That Eddie just now, I don't know if he is the host of Venom. While riding his motorcycle, Hawking suddenly remembered that Venom's symbiote host seemed to be named Eddie, who was also a reporter. But he didn't take it to heart, because even if it was true, he was still just a loser reporter, and superheroes like Venom were also the type that was easier to recruit. Jincheng High School, let's go here to take a look first. Speeding all the way, Hawking finally found Marvel's famous Midtown High School in Queens. It is not easy to find Peter Parker in such a large borough of Queens, but it is much easier to find a famous public high school. At least in his impression, most of the Spider-Men in the universe should have attended Midtown High School. If this universe is not the case, then it doesn't matter. At worst, I can make up a reason and ask Professor X to use a brainwave amplifier to help find it. "Hey, handsome guy, which class are you in? Meet me. I'm Lily." King Huo parked his motorcycle, and before he reached the teaching building, he was stopped by a blonde girl dressed very hotly. Jingcheng High School is a city public high school. It is not an aristocratic school, nor is it an expensive private school. There is no elite education, and the atmosphere of the entire school is relatively loose, so the students here naturally have all kinds of students. Except for a few who have good grades, most of them are actually playing, falling in love, and rebellious. Maybe they will not work hard until they go to college. Hawking's almost perfect figure paired with a black jacket and riding a domineering Harley motorcycle naturally makes him very attractive to girls of this age. Girls abroad are really direct. Hawking was stunned for a moment, then replied with a smile, "Little sister, I'm not from your school. Can I ask if you know a classmate named Peter Parker?" "Lil sister." The blonde girl raised her eyebrows when she heard this and deliberately straightened her chest. "You don't look that big. Why do you think I'm small?" "Oh, I don't mean anything else. Obviously, you are very beautiful and a big beauty. I mean I am just a few years older than you." Upon seeing this, Hawking immediately smiled and explained. He knew that rebellious girls hated being treated like children. Sure enough, the blonde girl's face became much prettier after hearing this. "That's pretty much it. There's a nerd named Peter Parker in school, but I don't know if he's the one you're looking for." Chapter 51 Second Spider-Man. It should be him. Do you know where he is now? When Hawking heard Nerd Peter, he roughly knew that it should be Spider-Man Peter, because he remembered that Peter Parker seemed to always be among the best in studies. He casually picked a leaf from the tree nearby, used a transformation spell to turn it into a rose, and handed it to the blonde girl in front of him. "A little meeting gift." The blonde girl took the rose with surprise on her face. "I didn't expect you to do magic. I don't know where Peter Parker is, but my best friend must know because she has a crush on that nerd." As she spoke, the blonde girl shouted to a thin black-haired girl standing at the door of the teaching building, Jessica, come here quickly." "Lily, what's wrong?" Jessica trotted over with a puzzled look on her face. Lily pointed at Hawking and said, "This guy is looking for nerdy Peter Parker. Do you know where he is now?" "Lily, don't call Peter a nerd. He is very smart. He just had a fight with Thompson in the corridor, and he beat Thompson to the ground." Jessica sounded very dissatisfied. But Lily burst out laughing when she heard this. "I said, Jessica, you must be kidding. The nerdy Peter Parker knocked down Mary Jane's boyfriend Thompson, who was a head taller than him." "I'm not kidding. A lot of people saw it. And then Peter ran out of the school, and now I don't know where he went." Jessica replied angrily. As Hawking listened to these words at this time, his brain began to spin crazily. He was recalling all the different versions of Spider-Man plots he had seen in his previous life. It's not Little Peter, it's not Super Spider-Man, there's no Mary Jane in Super Spider-Man, the plot is similar to McGuire's version of Spider-Man. If this is the case, then Peter was bitten not long ago by the spider. Thinking of this, Hawking stopped staying and rode his motorcycle again. "I have to leave first, and I'll treat you to dinner when I have time." After waving to Lily and Jessica, Hawking left the school on his motorcycle. "Oops, I didn't ask him for his phone number. I'll ask Peter next time. I didn't expect this nerd to know such an interesting handsome guy." Lily looked at Hawking's back disappearing at the school gate and sighed with a somewhat regretful expression. "Shallow," Jessica muttered to herself. On the street, Hawking was riding a motorcycle and observing the surrounding rooftops, while also muttering in his heart, "I didn't expect that Peter Parker also had a crush in high school, but why does the name Jessica sound familiar?" Found it. With his super eyesight, he soon spotted a young man jumping and flying on the roof of the building. "Ah ha ha, ha ha, that's great." Peter excitedly jumped over the rooftops of buildings 4 or 5 meters apart, and did not stop until he reached the pier by the East River. Yesterday, while visiting the Super Spider Project at the Columbia University Science Museum exhibition with the school, he was bitten by a mutated spider, and then slept hard at night. Today, his body has undergone tremendous changes. First of all, his myopia is gone, his eyesight is surprisingly good, his thin body has become stronger, and he even has 8 back abs. Secondly, his strength became very strong. He could lift Uncle Ben's 1-ton car with ease, and his 5 senses were also very sharp. Many things seemed to be in slow motion when he thought about it. Can sense danger occurring far away. Finally, after just knocking out Thompson, who usually liked to bully him, and running out of school, he discovered that his hands could extend barbs like spiders and stick to the wall to climb. Now, he was going to try out his ability to spray spider silk that only appeared occasionally. "Go ahead, net, fly, spider web." Shoot quickly, spider silk. Transform. Quick spin. After a series of lines and various strange postures, he finally mastered the method of firing spider silk normally. He stretched out his hand toward the pier in front, and a piece of white spider silk immediately shot out from his wrist and stuck to the hanger of a crane. Standing on a 6-story street building, grabbing the spider's thread with both hands, a bold idea suddenly came to his mind. He wanted to see if he could catch a spider's thread and swing to the roof across the street. Ouch! Imitating Tarzan's leap, he really relied on the spider's silky shot to easily swing across the street and successfully reached the rooftop across the street. But I was unskilled at the beginning, and I didn't have time to brake. With a pang sound, I hit the huge advertising banner erected on the opposite roof. Oh, hell. Peter touched his sore nose and prepared to get up. If a normal person had been hit like that just now, he would have been seriously injured and gone to the hospital, but now he just feels a little pain in his nose. It's okay, Peter Parker. At this moment, a strong hand suddenly stretched out in front of him. It's okay, thank you. Seeing the young man who appeared to be about the same age as himself, Peter instinctively expressed his thanks first. But he reacted quickly. How do you know my name is Peter Parker? I don't seem to recognize you. The first time we met, my name is Hawking. Hawking pulled Peter up, and instead of replying immediately, he introduced himself first. He had just witnessed the whole process of Peter Parker experimenting with spider silk from below. Unexpectedly, Spider-Man, who looked 16 or 17 years old at this time, still had some middle-class attributes in him. Also, whoever didn't pass the 2nd grade in middle school when he was young, didn't he himself have the experience of playing with a stick for a long time? Hello, Hawking, are you from our school too? Seeing that Hawking was about the same age as himself, Peter began to guess. Restored to the original condition. He raised his hand and pointed at Peter. His worn-out school uniform, which was frayed due to his recent fall, was instantly repaired and looked as brand new as when he first wore it. No, I'm not your classmate. I just know that your body mutated after being bitten by a spider, so I came here to talk to you, Hawking said with a smile. Peter looked at the brand new school uniform on his body, and his eyes suddenly widened. This is really amazing. Are you a mutant? He watched reports on TV that mutants were born with various magical abilities, but he knew that he was not a mutant because he was bitten by a spider and mutated into what he is now. Yeah, that's right. Hawking thought for a moment and nodded, then pointed to a burger restaurant across the street and said, We'd better go there and sit down and talk slowly. How about I treat you? Okay, of course, no problem. Peter nodded, his intuition telling him that the young man in front of him, who was about the same age as him, did not seem to have any malicious intent. Chapter 52 Hawking's Money Offensive. What, you said you want to pay me to help you fight criminals? Peter drank Coke and looked at Hawking with a blank expression. He is just a student who is about to graduate from high school and go to college. He is often bullied by his classmates at school. Even now that he has the ability, he has never thought about fighting criminals. That is what the police should do. Don't worry, you don't need to take action, and there won't be any danger. You just need to take some time every night. Use your ability to help me find out the crimes that are happening, and then tell me and let me solve them. I can pay you $100 an hour, Hawking said in a seductive tone. He doesn't have much money in his pocket right now, but that's just for now, and soon he'll have a lot of cash. Paying a little spider hundreds of dollars a day is trivial. 100 an hour. Peter Parker's expression suddenly changed. 1 hour is 100, 3 hours at night is 300, 1 month is 9,000, and 1 year is 100,000. You must know that before his uncle was fired, his income was only 30,000 to 40,000 yuan a year. This was really too tempting for him. With this money, Uncle Ben no longer has to work hard to find a job. He can also pay for his college tuition and buy some decent clothes so that he will not have to hold his head high in front of the goddess Mary Jane every time. I'll think about it. Just thinking that Uncle Ben and Aunt May would definitely not agree to him doing such dangerous work at night, he hesitated again. He has always been a good student and a good boy, but for him to suddenly run out without sleeping at night without telling Uncle Ben and Aunt May, even though he was helping to do good things, it was hard to make a choice. It doesn't matter. You think about it carefully and don't be in a hurry. If you think about it, you can call me on this phone or send me a text message. By the way, if you are in urgent need of money, I can advance your salary in advance. It won't be a problem for 10 or 8 years. Hawking was not surprised by Peter's reaction and did not try to persuade him. He just left his mobile phone number. The current Peter has just mutated and has not yet become a real Spider-Man. His mentality is just that of a high school student. If he became a real Spider-Man, he would take the initiative to fight criminals without even having to say anything. But at that time, it would not be easy to trick the other party into working for you like now. Okay, can I ask, why do you want to fight criminals? I've seen a lot of reports about mutants on TV, all of them causing trouble, but no mutant would want to use their abilities to fight criminals like you do. Peter picked up the piece of paper with the number on it and looked at Hawking before leaving. Hawking heard this and asked, "So do you think mutants are what they say in the news?" "No, I don't think so. I think everyone is human. Just like after I was bitten by a spider, although my body changed, my heart did not change. I think mutants are similar, and we shouldn't deliberately target them." Peter gave his answer without hesitation, as expected of Peter, who has a kind nature. Hawking smiled when he heard this. "Yes, so I want to use my ability to change humans' views on mutants, so that many mutants who are discriminated against may have a better life. Of course, fighting criminals was one of the things I wanted to do. For a person who only buys discounted suits after becoming a black man and asks his boss for a full-time job and double salary, you can imagine how kind-hearted he is. For a Spider-Man like this, sincerity is sometimes more useful than money. You are a good man." Peter left a word, then opened the door and left the burger restaurant, but the balance in his heart gradually tilted towards Hawking. Spider-Man is about to get it. Looking at Peter's expression as he finally left, Hawking knew that he was already inseparable. Humming a tune and riding his big motorcycle, he started to return. Physical training, studying Wukong technique, and practicing magic cannot be slacked off. 10 o'clock in the evening, in the battle simulation room. "Stronger, harder, come on, Wanda, you can do it." While Hawking was doing handstand push-ups on the ground with 2 fingers, he encouraged Wanda, who was already sweating on his forehead and was working hard to control the chaos magic to put pressure on him. Under the pressure of Wanda's chaos magic, he felt that he had only trained for an hour and could compare with the effects of the previous few days. "I can't do it anymore, Hawking. I can't do it anymore." Wanda's body went limp, she couldn't hold on anymore, and collapsed on the ground from exhaustion. Today was the first time in her life that she had maintained chaos magic for so long. "Then that's it for today." Hawking pushed 2 fingers to the ground, then turned over in midair and landed easily in front of Wanda. It was beyond his expectation that he could last for an hour. You must know that Wanda is only 13 years old now and has not received much training. It is indeed very difficult to concentrate on using chaos magic to the maximum extent to create pressure on him. As you continue to practice and your strength improves, the duration of persistence and the amount of pressure will increase, and your efficiency will be higher. So don't worry so much, and even so, the effect is already very good. Oops, I just overexerted myself and my body is too weak to stand up. Seeing Hawking coming to her, Wanda, who was about to stand up, rolled her eyes, her body went limp and she collapsed on the ground again. Upon seeing this, Hawking quickly stepped forward and hugged him. "I'll take you back to your room to rest first." Hawking, am I useless? Wanda's face suddenly turned red as her trick worked. In the past, Hawking often hugged her and kept throwing her into the air and catching her again. At that time, I felt very happy and had no other thoughts. I just felt that it was great to have Hawking as my brother. But now, when she was in love for the first time and was picked up by Hawking again, the feeling was completely different. Who said that? You are already very powerful and you have helped me a lot. Go to Wanda's room and put her on the bed. You rest here, I have a gift for you. After saying that, Hawking turned around and went to his room. When he came back, he already had a box in his hand. For you? Wow, this is the entire makeup line from Estee Lauder. Looking at the label on the box, Wanda immediately sat up from the bed and took the box into her hands, her face full of excitement. Hawking was stunned for a moment and smiled. It seems that your body has recovered a lot, so I'm relieved. He also felt a little guilty about asking Wanda to take time out to help him practice every day. So on the way back, I used all the savings in my pocket to buy Wanda a complete set of Estee Lauder cosmetics that she had longed for. As girls grow up, it is difficult for them to resist these things. Ah, yes, I suddenly feel better now and my strength has returned. After reacting, Wanda quickly put down the box and hurriedly followed Hawking's words to make amends. Chapter 53 Peter Parker's Decision. Chapter 53 Peter Parker's Decision. Meanwhile, Queens. Peter Parker was debating whether he should agree to Hawking's conditions and whether he should tell Uncle Ben and Aunt May about his mutation. Suddenly, through the window, he saw a beautiful figure illuminated by a lamp behind the curtains opposite, and his expression suddenly changed. I became crazy. It turned out to be Mary Jane, the goddess he had always had a crush on, who had just taken a shower and was changing clothes. Yes, Mary Jane, the school's crush, has actually been living next door to his house, but her boyfriend is the school's football star Captain Thompson, and her family is relatively wealthy. And he is just a transparent boy in school whose parents died young. His family is poor, he is thin, and he has been bullied. So even though his room with the goddess was only less than 5 meters apart, he never dared to take the initiative to say a word to her, even in school. Have you bought the beer? You can't buy it yourself. I work every day to earn money for this family. Then I will still take care of the housework for this family. However, soon he heard the sound of quarreling on the opposite side. It was Mary Jane's parents who were quarreling again. I'm so annoyed. You guys quarrel every day. I'm going out. Damn girl, where are you going so late? Don't worry about it. Gungan, you are as stupid as your mother. If you don't go to school well, you just know how to fool around. The dishes in the pool haven't been washed yet. You can't go out to play until they are done. Seeing that the goddess seemed to be going out, he hurried downstairs and picked up the kitchen garbage bag, pretending to go out and take out the garbage. As usual, he met the goddess who had just left home. Only this time, he didn't stop talking, but mustered up the courage to try and say hello to him. The changes in his body also gave him more confidence in himself. Maybe it was because of what happened during the day that Mary Jane had a great change in her opinion of Peter, so for a while the two of them were chatting somewhat speculatively. However, before Peter could be happy for a long time, a cool sports car stopped on the road in front, and the driver was Mary Jane's boyfriend Thompson. Hey Mary, come try my birthday gift and I'll take you to my birthday party to party all night long. Sorry, I have to leave. Mary Jane quickly waved to Peter and then flew towards Thompson excitedly. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, I love parties. The car is really cool. Watching his goddess leave in someone else's sports car at night, Peter felt mixed emotions in his heart and returned to his room feeling a little disappointed. Then he rummaged through the boxes in the room and found a newspaper devoted to cars. Triumph TR3, $4,999. Seeing that the cheapest second-hand sports car in the newspaper was close to $5,000, and a brand new high-end sports car like Thompson's started at $100,000. Peter's face suddenly turned green. Maybe he's right. At this time, he took out the phone number Hawking had given him during the day from his pocket. He was still hesitant at first, but now he has made his decision. As long as he works hard, maybe he will be able to own a sports car of his own before graduation, and then invite the goddess to go for a ride with him. Call out. The tree trunk from yesterday took off again from the mutant school, heading towards the Bronx. The flying speed of the tree trunk may not be faster than that of Cyclops' modified motorcycle, but it flies in a straight line in the air, without the need for detours below, and there are no speed bumps such as traffic jams or traffic lights. Overall, the time spent is still much less than riding a motorcycle. And it's not a pity to lose it. He can easily find a replacement on the roadside. If it wasn't inconvenient during the day, he wouldn't have to ask Cyclops to borrow the motorcycle. It was still the same park as yesterday, still so fast, still so cool, turning around 360 degrees and landing. Likewise, he still saw the Black brothers whom he had beaten yesterday. But at this time, the Black brother's arm was already in a plaster. "Boss, it's him. He's the one who beat us like this yesterday." Seeing Hawking appear, the Black brother immediately complained to a bald man in front of him who was fully 1.9 meters tall, and behind them stood 20 black gangsters armed with various instruments. "If you dare to beat my little brother like this, I'll chop him up and throw him into the river to feed the fish." The bald man didn't seem too smart. After hearing the complaints from the two younger brothers, he waved his hand and took the lead in rushing toward Hawking. "The money sender is here again." When Hawking saw this, his eyes lit up and his figure flashed forward to greet him. A moment later, among the black gangsters lying on the ground, he held the $652 in his hand and shook his head. "What a damn poor guy. How can you get away with being so poor?" After putting the money in his pocket, he suddenly felt something in his heart. He picked up the bald boss and slapped a few of his big-ass pockets to wake him up. Then he pointed at his head. "The soul is out of body. The imperious curse is one of the 3 unforgivable curses. The person who has been cursed will feel that his mind goes blank, all thoughts and sense of responsibility disappear, and then he will feel extremely happy and joyful. Then there will be a voice telling the person who has been cursed to do something, and the person who is cursed will do it exactly. The disadvantage is that the person who is under the curse has strong enough willpower to resist. If it is cast on the same person multiple times, it will cause resistance." The 3 unforgivable curses were taught by Fake Moody before the Goblet of Fire, and Harry learned them, so Hawking could also master them. It's just that if this kind of black magic is used too much, it will easily pollute the spirit of the person who casts the spell, especially the kind like chewing a big melon, which has a very big impact, and he will not use it often unless necessary. "Tell me, what are the forces in your area, and which boss is the richest?" "They are all here under the effect of the imperious curse." The black bald boss quickly told Hawking everything he knew. Next, he will use money in many ways, whether it is to pay Spider-Man's salary or the superhero international company he plans to establish, so he must find a way to make more money. So he set his sights on the bosses of the dark forces. Even if these guys' money was taken away by him, they would not dare to call the police or make a big deal out of it. At most, they would send someone to investigate secretly. When it comes to making money, he plans to open a new vest so that his positive image will not be affected and the dark forces will not find any clues. Then spend the first half of the night fighting criminals and the second half of the night making money. After a few jumps and disappearing into the park, he used the transformation spell to turn his coat into golden armor again and began tonight's crime-fighting operation. The peak period of crime incidents is between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and the crime rate will decrease significantly after 2 o'clock. After 2 o'clock, everyone has fallen asleep, including the dark forces, which makes it much easier for him to make money. Even though he could steal money silently, he still didn't want to make a scene and rob it, lest it cause unnecessary trouble. Chapter 54. I am inseparable from sin. This guy is quite dedicated, but he seems to be unlucky. At midnight, after Hawking brilliantly solved several crimes, he unexpectedly met an acquaintance. This acquaintance was none other than Eddie Brock, the Daily Bugle's top reporter. But at this time he was being blocked in a street corner by a few gangsters and being robbed. Those gangsters obviously had some special hobbies. After snatching Eddie's camera and wallet, they actually started to forcefully lift Eddie's pants. Oh, no, brothers, don't be like this. You want money, right? I'll give it all to you. If it's not enough, I can go to the bank and withdraw it. Any amount is fine. Please let me go. Eddie protected his pants desperately, with a hint of crying in his tone. Hell, I've heard that the South Bronx is very dangerous at night, and even many experienced reporters are unwilling to come here at night. But he didn't expect it to be so dangerous. Even if he robbed money, he didn't need that little money. He also wanted to rob, which was too much. He was a normal man with a girlfriend. If I had known better, I would have called a few people together. At least I would have had some ability to resist. Because he wanted to please his boss's boss, when he was writing tomorrow's front page, he was thinking of going to the South Bronx to see if he could take the opportunity to find some more material to add to the front page report. As a result, the material was not found, but it was blocked by a few perverts. Is he going to lose his virginity today? If that was the case, he really wanted to eat all these guys alive. Seeing the jeans and boxer briefs being forcibly torn together, the faces of the tall gangsters in front of them were full of excitement. Eddie, who had just graduated from college a few years ago, was in his prime and fair, and his heart suddenly jumped. Desperate. However, at this moment, a golden figure descended from the sky like a god. With just a few waves, it knocked away those perverted gangsters like swatting flies. He also reached out and pointed at his pants, using some magical power to restore his pants to their original shape. Friend, put on your pants. The majestic yet warm voice instantly dispelled all the despair in his heart, allowing him to see the light again. He swore that from then on, the god of war, who had helped him save Jew, would be his biggest idol in life. Anyone who had trouble with the god of war would have trouble with Eddie. Thank you so much. Eddie hurriedly put on his pants and took back his camera and wallet. Try not to be alone in this place at night, otherwise it will be very unsafe. Go home quickly. Hawking nodded and turned to leave. The gold medal reporter of the Bugle Daily, the main contributor of his news in the future, if he can save nature, he still has to save it. If it were someone else, he would not necessarily take action in an incident like this where the value of justice is obviously very low. At this time, Eddie hurriedly stopped in front of him and introduced himself. I'm Eddie, a reporter from the Daily Bugle. Can I ask you a few questions? Of course, it's okay if you don't want to answer. Explain. Hawking paused for a moment, then nodded. Some words conveyed through Eddie's mouth can enrich his image, and can also increase the sales of the Daily Bugle, killing two birds with one stone no problem. Eddie immediately took out a small notebook and started to memorize it. Where are you from? Are you human? I was born on Earth and was born with these abilities. How old are you? About the same as you. May I ask why you come out at night to fight crime? Because I am sworn in with sin. Upon hearing Hawking's answer, Eddie was stunned. An evil crime once happened in front of me, but I didn't take any action. I regretted it only after it was over. The most painful thing in the world is this. So I made up my mind to fight against evil, to be the nemesis of evil, and to eradicate evil. After Hawking made up a few words, he jumped and disappeared from Eddie's eyes. At this time, Eddie suddenly realized that although it was just a few sentences, he had already made up a lot of plots from his mind. He felt that Hawking was probably a mutant. He was afraid of being targeted because he exposed his abilities, so he didn't dare to take action until he encountered a crime. The kind-hearted man blamed himself for the crime, so he began to put on armor to fight crime. At this time, he was filled with excitement about the content on tomorrow's front page, a tragic superhero story, which would greatly arouse the sympathy and recognition of the public. Go back and write the manuscript quickly. After stomping hard on the gangsters, Eddie quickly went to the parking lot to find his car and returned to Manhattan. It would be nice if this guy was really venomous in the future. After leaving Eddie, Hawking continued to fight crime. The more dangerous the incident, the more crowded the incident, the more frequently he ran. The former gives more justice points and the latter can gain fame faster. It wasn't until 3 o'clock in the morning that he stopped taking action because he was ready to do another thing. Fluffy. With a slight tap on the body, the shining golden armor immediately turned into a black knight suit. With a glare of his feet, he had disappeared from the spot and merged into the darkness. Collapse. On the roof of a large luxury villa, Hawking jumped lightly onto the balcony and cast a coma spell on the old man sleeping in the bedroom. Then he slowly came to the big safe beside Naki's bed. According to the account of the bald gangster boss, the old man on the bed should be the most powerful boss in the nearby area. He owns 2 casinos and 4 special bars and is also involved in the flower business. When he arrived at the door just now, there were more than 20 men patrolling the yard alone, each armed with a gun. However, those ordinary people were no threat to him at all. With his skill, he easily avoided them all and quietly reached the master bedroom. It looks like a high-end safe. The safe in front of me, which is as tall as a person, does not look like a bargain at first glance. Not only does it have passwords and fingerprints, but it also has pupil verification. But it didn't work for me. Hawking raised his hand and pointed towards the safe. Open the Allahu hole. Bada. The safe opened instantly. As for the lock-picking spell or the door-opening spell, as long as it is not protected by energy similar to magic, it can open no matter what lock you use or what door you have. This is the magical thing about the magic in the world of Harry Potter. Although it is not powerful, it is quite idealistic, as if it involves the concept of laws. Hawking even felt that if his mental power was strong enough and his research on the spell was deep enough, the opening spell might not only be able to open ordinary doors, but also other things with doors. For example, the heart gate, gang gate, forehead. After all, it's idealistic magic, so it makes sense. It's just that he's not strong enough. Chapter 55 League of Legends International Corporation. This is so ridiculous. Opening the safe door, Hawking's face was immediately filled with a smile. Sacks of dollar bills, pieces of gold, as well as various jewelry, diamonds, and expensive jewelry, the entire safe was filled to the brim. Sure enough, compared to those little gangsters who collect protection fees, this kind of boss who knows how to do business is the real rich. Get smaller quickly. After thinking for a while, Hawking did not take out the cash and jewelry inside, but directly used a shrinking spell to shrink the entire insurance to the size of a thumb, and then put it in his pocket. It's a pity that Harry has not learned the invisible stretch charm at this time. Otherwise he could use the invisible stretch charm to make something similar to a space bag. Since you have contributed so much money, I won't kill you. Glancing at the unconscious old man, he quietly left the villa. As long as the general environment of the Bronx does not change, it will not matter how many bosses are killed. Once you kill this one, a second one will pop up to take his place, or the territory of this one will be annexed by another force. The result is still the same, and it's easy to cause trouble. The key is how can there be light in this world without darkness to compare with it? If there are no criminal incidents, where can the justice value be earned? The first time he took action, he returned with a full load. Hawking no longer went to the territories of the other bosses, but went directly all the way north to prepare for his return. This kind of cash is almost enough. There is no point in getting too much, because if it is used in large quantities, it will be unclear where it comes from, and if it is really needed, he can get it at any time with his ability. Although he is now trusted by Professor, it's not that Professor X has any precautions against him. It's just that in Professor this problem can be solved in another 2 years when he reaches his age, or he can wait until his reputation is fully established and start up Superhero International Company earlier. He already had a name for it, and it was called League of Legends International Company. At that time, all kinds of hero peripherals, advertisements, endorsements, etc. will be the money that can be used openly. The next day, when Hawking woke up from his sleep in the afternoon, he saw a text message from Peter Parker on his phone. The general meaning of the text message was that he agreed to work as a temporary worker for Hawking and hoped to meet again and have a detailed chat today. Very good, we have the first member of the League of Legends. After replying a text message and making an appointment with Peter Parker on a time and place to meet, Hawking turned on his computer and started browsing the web. Sure enough, because he appeared in front of the public many times to save people, his popularity was further increased. I also saw the report about the God of War written by Eddie posted on the internet. This report once again attracted a lot of loyal fans to him. But some people left comments that the content written by the Daily Bugle may not be true. There are also various speculations about whether he is a mutant, etc. Generally speaking, things are developing in the direction he wants. Although some extreme people have made extreme remarks to smear him, the flaws cannot be concealed. You must know that except for money, you can't make everyone like you. Especially those who already have criminal tendencies and are already committing crimes. They will definitely not like the nosy superhero who is the God of War. There was just one thing that surprised him, and that was that he found that even though he had registered himself as the God of War, no one seemed to like it, and he didn't know if they found it awkward to call him. So now everyone on the internet is calling them Armored Man or Armored Man. He couldn't help complaining when he saw it, and he might as well call him the Armored Warrior. It seems that sometimes not everything goes as expected. If I had known earlier, he might as well have been called Saiyan Superman like Sun Wuhan. It just so happened that there were Superman comics in this world and it was easy to understand. Armored Man, be Armored Man. After getting up, taking a shower and changing his clothes, he went to find Cyclops to borrow a motorcycle. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the burger restaurant on East River Wharf Street in Queens. Hawking looked at Peter Parker, who pushed in the door and smiled. It's quite early for your school to finish. Usually you can leave after 3:30. If you join some clubs, it would be around 5 or 6 o'clock. I didn't join any clubs, so I left school at 3:30 to catch the bus. My family lives in the suburbs, and it takes more than an hour to get there by bus. Peter explained as he sat across from Hawking. Public school is really easy. Hawking couldn't help but sigh secretly after hearing this. This is the senior year of high school. You must know that in his senior year, he basically worked from 6 to 11, but here it is 9 to 3. Are you sure? Confirmed. Peter nodded and then asked a little embarrassedly, last time you said you could make an advance in advance. Can I make an advance of 5,000? Of course, but can I ask what you want to do? Hawking nodded, with a hint of curiosity on his face. Peter replied sheepishly, I want to buy a second-hand car before graduation so I can take my classmates for a ride. Well, how about a second-hand one? I'll give you an advance of 100,000 to buy a first-hand one. Anyway, it's just less than 2 years' salary for you. It's so shameless to chase a girl and drive a second-hand car. Upon hearing this, Hawking immediately smiled and patted Peter on the shoulder. He knew as soon as he heard that Peter must be doing it for that Mary Jane, otherwise he wouldn't be so impulsive to ask him to advance his salary in advance. Mary Jane, this girl, doesn't have very good senses anyway. When he was in high school, he hung out with Thompson, who liked to bully Peter every day. He probably would have lost his first blood a long time ago. After graduating from high school and not going to college, he worked as a waiter and dreamed of being a star all day long. Then he broke up with Thompson and fell in love with Peter's best friend Harry, who was richer than Thompson. When he found out that Peter was the famous Spider-Man, he broke up with Harry and fell in love with Peter again. Because Peter was busy rescuing people and had no time to spend with her, he seemed to have fallen in love with an officer again and almost got married to that officer. After finally reconciling with Peter, he betrayed Peter again and got together with Harry. Let's look at Mary Jane's career. She graduated from high school and became a waitress. She never went to college to study acting, and later became a famous star. If you say she didn't pay anything in the process, he wouldn't believe it anyway. However, there is no way to say that this kind of thing can be fought or endured. Anyway, he just took this opportunity to tie Peter to his worship. So let alone 100,000, it would be no problem even 2 or 300,000. Instead, he hoped that Peter could get more. Is this really okay? When Peter heard that he could get an advance of 100,000, a look of disbelief suddenly appeared on his face. Before starting work, I can get an advance of 100,000 yuan. This boss is so nice that he can't believe it. Bank loans also require interest. Chapter 56 Spider Totem. Of course, but you suddenly have a new sports car. How should you explain it to your family? Hawking asked with a smile. Peter scratched his head. I really haven't thought about this yet. Also, if he suddenly spends 100,000 yuan to buy a new sports car and goes back, Uncle Ben and Aunt May will definitely ask him where he got the money, and he can't tell the truth, which will be very troublesome then. Upon seeing this, Hawking made a suggestion. Well, didn't you say you like photography very much? I'm familiar with the boss of the Bugle Daily, so I can get you a part-time reporter's work permit. You go back and say that you accidentally took a very precious photo. The boss of the Bugle Daily admires you very much and invites you to work part-time during the holidays. He is also willing to lend you a sports car to drive in the few days before graduation. You even know the owner of the Daily Bugle. Peter's eyes suddenly widened. Photography is one of his few hobbies besides studying. In addition to being a scientist in the future, he has always wanted to be a journalist. Although the Daily Bugle is not the largest newspaper in New York, it is still ranked among the top. Of course he knows that. I can take you to get to know each other later, and buy a car by the way. By the way, do you have a driver's license? Hawking nodded. He was only 15 years old. Here in New York, you must be at least 16 years old to get a driver's license. If Peter didn't have a driver's license, they wouldn't be able to drive the car even if they bought it. He couldn't just give someone the imperious curse when he met a traffic policeman. I have it, and I carry it with me. Peter immediately excitedly took out his driver's license from his school bag. He is 17 years old this year and will go to college after the summer vacation after graduation. How could he not have a driver's license? He has even driven Uncle Ben's classic car several times. Then let's go. Hawking stood up and waved, then rode his motorcycle and took Peter Parker to the headquarters of the Daily Bugle. I met Jonah Jameson in the Daily Bugle and asked him to apply for a part-time press pass for Peter. He also took Peter to a car sales place and bought Peter his first sports car in full cash. It's so cool. Seeing Peter lovingly touching the sports car he just got, Hawking rode on his motorcycle and said with a smile, "It's yours, but don't forget, Queen's Park, 11 o'clock at night, no problem." Peter immediately nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. Hawking had just bought him a sports car, which was simply not too great for him at this moment. It feels like your roommate who you just met in college suddenly buys you a sports car. As long as you spend an hour or two every day in college to help him find someone, you can still take leave at any time. Do you think this roommate is great? After waving goodbye to Peter, Hawking rode his motorcycle back to the mutant school, but he thought of another question on the way. That is whether Peter's Uncle Ben will still die. It stands to reason that now that Peter has the money he gave him to buy a car, he will not go into boxing, nor will he quarrel with his Uncle Ben. Ben will not drive to find him and then be accidentally killed by the robbers. But he once saw it in a short video, saying that Spider-Man's ability does not actually come from mutation. It is not a technology side ability, but a magic side ability. When Spider-Man has mental problems or problems with his beliefs, the abilities brought by the magic in his body will also be affected and temporarily disappear. Because Spider-Man's abilities actually come from the spider totem, every universe is destined to have a Spider-Man. The biting spider will only be effective if it bites the person chosen by the spider totem. It is useless to bite other people, and every Spider-Man will lose a loved one after being selected, which may be a family member or a lover. If this is really the case, then even if his influence allowed Ben to escape this time, he will not be able to escape the next time. But what should I say about this kind of thing? There is nothing he can do now. He can't be with Ben every day, and it's useless even if you follow him every day. This involves the high-level power of fate, which he cannot fight against now. This is why he has to work hard to be strong. There are too many extraordinary beings in Marvel. If you are not strong enough, they can easily play with you in the palm of their hand. They will live if they want you to live, die if they want you to die, and separate your wife and children. The wife and children will be separated. These multiverse-level gods are the most terrifying existences. Night, 11 o'clock, Queen's Park. Peter had been waiting here early. Because he was afraid of being late, he arrived half an hour early. When driving his sports car home at night, he was severely tortured by Uncle Ben. Fortunately, he managed to get away with his part-time press pass and the words taught by Hawking. Uncle Ben and Aunt May are older and usually fall asleep around 9 o'clock, so he can go out without worrying about being discovered after 9 o'clock. Peter was sitting on a bench in the park, focusing on the park entrance, waiting for Hawking to arrive on his windy motorcycle. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something, and quickly turned around and looked up into the sky. "That's okay." His super eyesight allowed him to see the tree trunk flying rapidly from a distance and Hawking standing on the tree trunk at a glance. Boom. The tree trunk was inserted into the lawn of the park, and Hawking fell to the ground and appeared right in front of him. "Hello, Peter. You're here quite early. I thought you would appear from the door, but I didn't expect it to be like this." "It's really beyond my expectation." Peter looked at the tree trunk inserted into the lawn, and then at Hawking, his face full of surprise. Hawking shrugged. "It's faster this way. The Bronx and Queens are separated by the ocean, and it's a waste of time to cycle around Manhattan. If you want to learn, I can teach you next time." Even though Peter Parker is dangling all day long, he only fights those trivial criminals, and he doesn't seem very powerful. In fact, Spider-Man's ultimate strength is as high as 25 tons. If you master the skills, it is not impossible to reproduce Hawking's tree flying. Want to learn? Using spider silk to move forward quickly can only be used in cities. If it is like deserts and grasslands, you can only run on foot. If you learn this trick, you don't have to worry about those problems, and you'll be really handsome, right? By the way, you didn't prepare any clothes to hide your appearance. Aren't you afraid of being recognized? At this time, Hawking discovered that Peter was still wearing his school uniform. Maybe because he had the impression that Spider-Man always wore that tight suit, so he forgot to remind him during the day. "Oops, I forgot." Only then did Peter realize. After all, it was his first time and he hadn't thought of so many details. If he was really photographed and put in a newspaper, Uncle Ben would be dead if he saw it. "What should we do now? What kind of clothes do you want?" Hawking asked. Peter immediately took out the pen and paper he brought with him and quickly drew a piece of clothing. "I want this, but it's too late now." Chapter 57, Brainwashing Spider-Man. As expected, you really like this. Hawking took a look at the sketch Peter drew. It was the red and blue Spider-Man suit that Spider-Man originally wore for black boxing. Fluffy. With a finger, the transformation spell was activated, and Peter's school uniform immediately turned into a spider suit, but Hawking beautified it a bit. It was probably similar to his spider suit a few years later, with a spider pattern on the chest. It's so cool. Peter touched the spider suit on his body, jumped twice excitedly, assumed a spider shape, and shot a piece of spider silk towards the big tree in front of him. Hawking, your ability is like magic. The clothes last for about 3 hours and then they change back. You still have to get a new one yourself tomorrow. Hawking confessed and then turned his clothes into a golden battle suit. But then Peter was stunned again. It turns out that you are the Armored Man. He naturally knew about the God of War or the Armored Man because it had been a hot topic in the class for the past 2 days, and many of his classmates admired him very much, including Thompson, who had a bad relationship with him. When Hawking invited him to help fight criminals at night, he felt a bit like Armor Man. He thought Hawking was imitating Armor Man, but he didn't expect Hawking to be Armor Man. Let's go. Today we will mainly be in Queens. Hawking jumped up, followed closely by Peter. Peter only had 2 hours to spare at night. It was too far to go to the Bronx and it would take a lot of time to go back and forth. It was better to start the project directly in Queens. He was looking for Peter mainly to use Peter's spider sense to find out the murders hidden indoors and obtain justice points more efficiently. This kind of thing is not uncommon in Queens. When the 2 hours were up, he could return to the Bronx on his own. The main reason is that Peter doesn't have much experience now. Once he becomes more proficient, he can go directly to Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, which is not far from Queens and has many murders. There, I sensed a cry for help in that building. Not long after, Peter suddenly stopped and called out to Hawking, pointing in the direction of the 8th floor of a nearby apartment. According to Peter's guidance, Hawking quickly rescued an old man living alone who almost fell down and almost burped, and called an ambulance for him. There seems to be gunfire in that factory. Underground, someone fell into an underground pipe and hit his head and is about to die. With the help of Peter's spider sense, Hawking's efficiency has been greatly improved, and the progress bar of justice has increased several times faster. If this continues, he may be able to unlock the 3rd protagonist template in less than a year. 2 hours later, on the roof of Peter's house. You've done a great job. That's it for today and we'll continue tomorrow. Hawking patted Peter on the shoulder with a satisfied look on his face. However, Peter's face was a little tangled at this time. Hawking, why can't we do everything? In the process of fighting criminals for just 2 hours, he discovered many criminal incidents, but not every crime would be taken action by Hawking. Even when he wanted to help, he would be stopped. This made him confused. Hawking was not surprised by Peter's confusion, but explained in a serious tone, "It's not that I don't want to help, but because some things are not serious, and the victims only lose some money or suffer minor injuries at most. If we waste time helping, we may cause other people whose lives are being threatened to die because they cannot get our help. Do you think so?" "That's true, but I still feel a little guilty in my heart." Peter scratched his head. "Still too kind." When Hawking heard this, he immediately knew that Peter must have blamed himself for the consequences of the events that happened without taking action. The current Peter has not completely transformed due to Ben's death, and has not been brainwashed by the saying, "With great power comes great responsibility," but his nature is kind, and even without those things he would have embarked on a similar path. Just like if he had the same experience as Peter, then when he heard "the greater the power, the greater the responsibility," he would just think it was fart. If you say "the greater the power, the greater the responsibility," he would still believe it. If his uncle is killed, what he has to do is to use his own ability to make the other party pay for his debt. In the future, he will be able to help others, but it is definitely impossible to help others even if he sacrifices his own life like Peter. This is the difference between people. He and Peter are not the same person. Of course, he still admires and likes people like Peter very much in his heart, just like Gao King admires Enzin, but will not do Enzin, nor will he become friends with another Gao King. In this way, I will first familiarize you with it at this stage. When you become proficient, we will split up and use the communicator to communicate. If you find something that may be life-threatening, just notify me and I will deal with it. You can deal with other things that are not so dangerous. The two of us will work together to help everyone in need. Okay, Hawking, compared to you, I think I'm really a little selfish. I will be on vacation soon and I will be free during the day. I will come to help when I am free. You don't have to pay me anymore. Hearing Hawking's answer, Peter looked ashamed. Hawking used his abilities to help those in need, but he did it for money and sports cars before he was willing to help, and even questioned Hawking's actions. Compared with Hawking's nobility, he felt that he was too selfish. Hawking smiled and replied, "Ahaha, you don't have to think like this. I have nothing else to do and I have spare money, and you want to go to school and have your own dreams. There is no need to think like this, that is moral kidnapping. But if you have time during the summer vacation, I would certainly like to help you, and it's still $100 an hour. Don't refuse. I know you need tuition for school, your uncle was laid off, and your family also needs money. The prerequisite for helping others is to first help yourself and your family." "Thank you, Hawking." At this time, Peter looked at Hawking as if he were looking at a sun full of light, so dazzling and brilliant. We are all about the same age, but our ideological realms are vastly different. He sometimes felt that Hawking was like a mature philosopher while he was still a naive child. In fact, what he didn't know was that in terms of age in this world, Hawking was 2 years younger than him. "Tomorrow, it's still Queen's Park." With his last words, Hawking jumped away and returned to the Bronx to continue unfinished work. It's just 1 o'clock now, and he has to work for another 5 hours. Although the efficiency is not as high as that of being with Peter, mosquito legs are not legs, and he has to continue to establish a good image of himself. Chapter 58, Mary Jane, Dead. Chapter 58, Mary Jane is dead. A month later, in the room at the mutant school, Hawking closed his eyes and crossed his legs, floating half a meter above the bed. He concentrated his thoughts and tried to control his breath to break away from the gravity of gravity and maintain a suspended state. Suddenly, the alarm bell rang by the table, which distracted him and immediately fell onto the bed. Finally, it has some results. I need to spend more time practicing. Reaching out to press the alarm that sounded at 10:30, Hawking jumped out of bed. After a month of research on Kai, he finally found the key to levitating his body. Now he could barely control himself with Kai while concentrating and maintain his position off the ground. And this also means that it won't be too long before he completely masters the air dance technique and can fly freely. With his current combat power, flying with Wukong technique is naturally not a problem. After all, Gohan's wife Vitaly's dozens of combat power will be no problem. The key is to be able to understand the techniques, and he doesn't have a teacher to teach him step by step. Leaving the room through the window, he flew to Queen's Park in Queens, as he did every night, and met Peter Parker in a spider tights. "Congratulations on your graduation today." Today happens to be Peter Parker's graduation day, and he was admitted to the most prestigious Empire State University in New York. "Thanks." Peter Parker raised his head with a very stiff smile on his face. And Hawking immediately noticed something strange. "Why, something seems wrong with you. Is your Mary Jane rejecting you?" After getting along for a month, Peter had already regarded him as a good friend who talked about everything. Naturally, he also confessed his crush on his classmate Mary Jane and the real reason for buying a sports car. In this regard, he also encouraged Peter to chase if he wanted to, be bold and not be afraid of rejection. Although he felt that Mary Jane was not suitable for Peter, it only mattered as long as the person involved liked it. Bai Yueguang was not easily rejected by outsiders, and it might even make Peter resentful if she was persuaded. And as far as he is concerned, he actually feels that for something like this, he must make his own decision. Even if the result is not good, it is his own choice. If he changes his mind because of a few words of persuasion from others, he deserves to regret it in the future. Of course, this may be because he is the kind of person who is independent and not easily influenced by the outside world. So after hearing from Peter that Mary Jane and her boyfriend Thompson broke up, he encouraged Peter to boldly confess his love to Mary Jane at the end of today's graduation ceremony. After success, he would take her for a ride and then do what a man should do. But now it seems that the confession has obviously failed. This was within his expectation. Will Mary Jane fall in love with Peter just because he has a sports car? Obviously impossible. Mary Jane fell in love with Peter because Peter was already a well-known superhero in New York at that time. Just like the unreachable star she always wanted to be, he attracted everyone's attention and had 2 heroic rescues. What she loves is not the nerdy Peter, but the famous Spider-Man. Hawking, Mary, she's dead. Peter looked up at Hawking, his eyes already red-hot. After hearing this, Hawking was stunned. Mary Jane was dead, which was a bit of a surprise to him. What happened? On the way to attend the graduation ceremony, she encountered a robbery. Finally, I found and caught the robber and handed him over to the police. Peter choked up and recounted what happened. Mary Jane took a taxi to the school to attend her graduation ceremony, but she encountered 2 robbers who had just finished robbing a gold store. Mary Jane was shot and died on the spot. After learning about the situation, Peter was filled with grief and anger. He put on a spider suit and searched, and found the 2 fleeing robbers first. But in the end, he still didn't have the guts to kill, so he beat the 2 robbers severely and handed them over to the police. Looks like it still happened. After listening to Peter's narration, Hawking couldn't help but sigh secretly. Obviously, Spider-Man was destined to lose a loved one, but it happened. But because of his appearance, Peter lost not his Uncle Ben, but the goddess Mary Jane, whom he had a crush on. My condolences. Please take a good rest these days. Hawking patted Peter on the shoulder. Peter must have been in a bad mood after something like this happened, and he couldn't keep squeezing the other person, so he simply took the initiative to give Peter a few days off to rest. However, Peter's eyes became firm at this time. He took out a wad of money from his school bag and handed it to Hawking. No, it is precisely because of this that I can't rest. As Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. If I had discovered and stopped the 2 robbers during the robbery, Mary would not have been killed later. So from today on, I decided, like you, to fight criminals as what I should do, not for money. I sold the sports car for 80,000 yuan, and I will pay you back the remaining 20,000 yuan slowly in the future. In the future, I will help you fight criminals without charging another penny. Although he tried his best to hide it during this period, he still aroused the suspicion of his Uncle Ben. After learning what happened today, Ben had a good talk with him, which enlightened him and made him understand a lot. No, you're fine now. Hawking didn't want to take the money back, but when he saw Peter's firm eyes, he knew that Peter had changed, so he took it back. But with a roll of his eyes, he continued, Peter, actually I have always had the idea that relying on the power of one person is limited after all, just like what happened today. So I want to form a team whose members are people with special abilities like us, so that we can help more people. In order for all of us to be able to use our abilities to help others more safely without being disturbed by the trivial matters in life, we can also set up a related company to operate. Everyone occasionally takes photos, shoots advertisements, sells peripherals, and earns some money to subsidize it. What do you think? I don't think there's any problem. Of course that's good, but how should I do it? Peter was stunned for a moment. He felt that this was certainly a good thing, but as a high school graduate who had just graduated, these were too unfamiliar to him and were not areas he knew. Hawking smiled. Leave it to me how to do it. What I mean is that if I get it done, would you like to join? I definitely do. Peter nodded without hesitation. Not only could he use his abilities to help others, but he could also make some money to pay off debts. How could he not agree to this? This making money has a different meaning than the way Hawking paid his salary before. In the past he did good deeds for money, but now he does good deeds from the bottom of his heart and then earns some money to support his family. And even though he was very determined to pay back the money just now, he was also very worried in his heart, because to be honest, for him, he really didn't know how long he would have to work part-time as a part-time job to pay off the shortfall of 20,000. So he is naturally willing to do this kind of thing that kills two birds with one stone. The most important thing is that he believes in Hawking's character. If it were anyone else, he would definitely not be willing. Chapter 59, Jessica Jones. Chapter 59, Jessica Jones. It seems that it's not a bad thing for Mary Jane to die. Seeing Peter's willingness to agree, Hawking nodded secretly and then began to comfort him again. Peter, don't be sad. Trust me, you will definitely meet a girl who is more suitable for you in the future. If he remembered correctly, Peter would also meet Gwen Stacy in college, who really admired his learning ability. She was a highly intelligent and talented woman, fair-skinned and beautiful, and the daughter of the New York police chief. It feels like a better fit for Peter than Mary Jane. He really wanted to tell Peter that the next one was better and the next one was better, but obviously this was not the right time. I'm afraid not anymore. Peter's eyes were a little sad. By the way, didn't I remember that there was a girl in your school who also had a crush on you? At this time, Hawking suddenly thought of the first time he went to Jincheng High School to find Peter. When Peter heard this, he waved his hands quickly. Is there a girl at school who has a crush on me? Impossible, impossible. I only had Harry as my boyfriend at school, and the girls called him nerd and didn't like his type at all. They preferred team stars like Thompson. Hawking laughed and said, Who said that? Be confident. I remember her name was Jessica, a thin girl with black hair. Are you talking about Jessica Campbell? She hasn't come to school for more than half a month. I heard from the teacher that she seemed to have been hospitalized in a car accident. Peter heard the name Jessica and replied with disbelief. Hawking was stunned again. It can't really be that Jessica. He vaguely remembered that Jessica in that TV series seemed to have super strength because her body was exposed to some kind of radioactive chemical agent in a car accident when she was a child. It's just that the girl's name is clearly Jessica Jones, and she doesn't seem to say that she and Peter were high school classmates. Go and take a look when you have time. If it's true, you can invite her over. Jessica Jones's strength seems to be as good as Peter's, and she seems to be able to fly, but her mental resistance is relatively low and she can easily be mentally controlled. Since you don't want to rest, let's go. Today our goal is Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. After a month of training, the two have already cooperated very well, and Peter finally learned how to fly on the pillar under Hawking's guidance. However, Peter's flying pillar is somewhat different from Hawking's. Target, Central Park, Manhattan. Hawking took out the long stick of adamantium alloy from his pocket, lifted the shrinking spell on it to restore it to its original shape, and then used the growing spell to make it bigger. After adjusting his position, he threw the adamantium alloy stick forcefully, and his body appeared on the stick in a flash. Since there is no way to create a space bag with a seamless stretching spell, use the enlarging spell and the reducing spell to temporarily replace it. The disadvantage is that it cannot be maintained permanently like the traceless stretch spell. Every 3 hours or so, the spell must be reapplied, otherwise it will return to its original state. But in the future, when his spirit becomes stronger, or when he studies these two spells more deeply, he may be able to maintain it for days, months, or even years without recovering. Over there, Peter also found the tree trunk he usually used for practice, and threw it with the same force, but he couldn't catch up with the tree trunk as fast as Hawking, nor did he have such powerful skills to stay on the tree trunk. But he also has his own advantage, and that is his spider silk. So, when his trunk flew out, his spider silk also shot out and stuck to the trunk. So this scene appeared in the sky. One pillar after another, Hawking stood on the pillar with his hands ready and looked very cool, while Peter was flying by the tree trunk holding onto the spider silk, looking a little sad. Boom! Boom! The two were inserted into the soil at the same time. Hawking flipped over and landed easily. Peter quickly shot out the spider silk again and stuck it on the nearby tree to stop the downward inertia and prevent it from being inserted into the ground together with the tree trunk. Hawking's power has been developed bit by bit over the past 3 years, so he can control it very finely and use it with ease. Peter's power comes from the spider totem. He suddenly possesses it after one night. Naturally, he cannot control it so well. It takes time to slowly polish and become familiar with it. Shudder, you little bastards of Hell's Kitchen. In the dark night, Hawking took Peter to the famous Hell's Kitchen for the first time to start a new sweep. This time they are not facing ordinary gangsters and robbers, but the most powerful gang members in the world. Of course, that's just for ordinary people. For Hawking, who is equally cunning and super powerful, and the Spider-Man he leads, there is actually not much difference. Hawking, I found 2 groups of people fighting in the street. Many passers-by were injured. They all had guns in their hands. Almost there. Hearing Peter's voice mixed with gunfire from the communicator, Hawking waved away the last 2 guards. An air bomb exploded the iron door, releasing a group of runway girls who were imprisoned inside and prepared to be smuggled abroad. This night, he obviously felt that he had gained a lot more justice than before in Queens. The next day, when he woke up and turned on his computer, there were some new reports about him. Breaking news: Hell's Kitchen will no longer exist. It is reported that Armored Man and Spider-Man, who are often active in Queens recently, made a surprise appearance in Hell's Kitchen last night. Is this going to mark this news? After swiping and swiping, Hawking suddenly saw a piece of news worthy of his attention. A big explosion occurred at the Exploration Aerospace Industries 6th test site. Many of the company's leaders and many generals, including Sokom, who inspected, were killed. The planned humanoid exoskeleton armor project was stranded and the stock fell. Is this the Green Goblin taking action? Watching this news, Hawking fell into deep thought. He remembered that it seemed that the newly appointed General Sokom was not optimistic about Osborne Industries' human performance enhancers and gliders, and planned to unilaterally tear up the treaty to support the exoskeleton armor project of the Exploration Aerospace Industry, thus irritating Norman O. Spawn. Norman Osborn injected himself with an undeveloped human body function enhancer, which caused a split personality and an evil personality. The evil personality controlled Osborn and turned into the Green Goblin to ride on a hang glider, directly blowing up many senior executives of Exploration Aerospace and General Sokom, thus saving orders from Osborne Industries. Then go meet this Green Goblin for a while. He is not going to punish the Green Goblin, but plans to cooperate with the Green Goblin. In his opinion, although the Green Goblin developed an evil personality due to the injection of imperfect human body function enhancers, he actually just wanted to promote the Ayashi industry and kill a few competitors. For him, the justice value obtained by killing the Green Goblin may not be as good as killing a small gang leader. On the contrary, if he has the opportunity to cooperate with the Green Goblin, it will not only be of great help to him in establishing the League of Legends International Company later, but he can also use the Green Goblin's scientific ability to build the gravity chamber as soon as possible. Of course, if the other party is unwilling, it is not too late to kill him. Chapter 60: The Strong Woman Who Jumped Off the Building. The curse stops immediately. When he arrived at the school gate, he took out the Harley-Davidson specially modified by Cyclops from his pocket and threw it to the ground. After releasing the shrinking spell on it, Hawking got on the motorcycle and accelerated toward the city. Although Professor Hawking said it was inconvenient to always borrow Cyclops' motorcycle, so Professor X immediately sent someone a new one, and then asked Cyclops to modify it. If Hawking asked for money, because Hawking is still a child in the eyes of Professor X, he is afraid that Hawking will lose himself in the city and go astray if he gets too much money. Racing all the way, he soon arrived in Queens. But the place he went to was not the AO Industrial Building, but the Queen's Hospital. He planned to first verify whether Peter's classmate Jessica was Jessica Jones, and then go to OS Industries to talk to the Green Goblin. "Hi, beauty, which ward is Jessica Campbell in?" He took out a coin and turned it into a rose. Hawking smiled and handed it to the nurse at the consultation desk. The little nurse who was busy raised her head impatiently. When she saw Hawking's handsome face and the rose in his hand, her attitude suddenly changed 180 degrees. "Little handsome boy, let me check it for you." After taking the rose, the little nurse quickly blinked and gave Jessica's ward number. Not everything needs to be solved by the soul-stealing curse: looks, figure, money, humor, romance. Sometimes it can also be a soul-stealing spell if used well. After waving goodbye to the little nurse, Hawking found Jessica's ward according to the ward number, but he did not see the black-haired girl in the ward. "It's so pitiful. I heard that her parents and younger brother died in this car accident, and she was the only one who survived. Yes, she has no relatives in her family anymore, so she will have to be adopted." "Where did Jessica go?" "Dr. Steven, she must have gone to the rooftop again. After she wakes up in the past few days, she will go to the rooftop to relax every day. Tell her not to run around when she comes back. I will check on her recovery later." Although Jessica was not found in the ward, Hawking learned the general situation from the conversations between nearby patients and doctors. So he quickly went to the rooftop of the hospital. "This kid doesn't want to jump off the building, does he?" As soon as he arrived at the rooftop, he saw Jessica standing on the edge of the rooftop, closing her eyes and taking a step out. Yes, he guessed right. At this time, Jessica was planning to jump off the building and end her life. On the weekend half a month ago, their family had a happy trip to Disneyland. However, halfway through, she and her brother had a quarrel about the activities they were going to play next, which caused her father to be distracted and cause a car accident. When she woke up, she learned that her parents and younger brother had all died in the car accident, and she was the only one who miraculously survived. At this time, she had already blamed herself for the death of her parents and younger brother. If she had not quarreled with her younger brother in the car and let him go, such a result would not have happened. Without her parents, younger brother, and relatives, coupled with a strong sense of guilt, she decided to kill herself. It's just that she's a little afraid of heights, and every time she tries to jump off a building, she's scared back. But today, she finally made up her mind to jump, so she closed her eyes without looking down and stepped out of the rooftop. "Why don't you feel weightless?" After stepping out of the rooftop, she thought she would fall to her death, but she felt as if she was staying where she was and not falling. "Is it a miscalculation and one step less?" Quietly opening her eyes, Jessica slowly lowered her head and looked down. Just the next second, her eyes showed an incredible look. Angular repo. Because she found that she was indeed in a state of stepping on the air with both feet, but she did not fall normally, but floated in the air completely contrary to the laws of physics. Very dizzy. After reacting, the dizziness caused by her fear of heights immediately hit her, and her ability to float in the air was also affected by fear and disappeared immediately, and her whole body fell downwards instantly. Ah, help! Her survival instinct made her cry out for help. Fortunately, at this moment, a strong hand suddenly appeared, grabbed her hospital gown, and carried her back to the rooftop. "Long time no see, Miss Jessica." Hawking put Jessica down, bent over and waved to her with a smile. At this time, he has already determined that this Jessica Campbell should be the Jessica Jones in his impression. The name may be different, but it may have been changed later. He had just seen Jessica's flying ability with his own eyes, although it seemed that he had just awakened. "Long time no see." Thank you for saving me. Jessica, whose legs were a little weak, tried to calm her heartbeat and recognized that the person who saved her was a boy she had met before, and quickly expressed her gratitude to Hawking. Hawking extended a hand to him. It seems that you are not in a good mood. Do you want to go have something to eat together? I'll treat you. Jessica looked at Hawking, then looked outside the rooftop, and finally stood up holding Hawking's hand good. After what she had just experienced, she no longer wanted to die today. She felt that she should die in a different way. Jumping off a building was too scary for her, who was afraid of heights. You can't leave the hospital with this condition. He reached out and pointed at Jessica, and her hospital gown immediately turned into a jacket and jeans. And this magical scene also left Jessica stunned on the spot. Don't be surprised. A little special ability, just like you were able to float in the air just now. After waving to Jessica and beckoning her to follow him, Hawking turned and walked towards the stairs of the rooftop. After Jessica was stunned for a few seconds, she immediately trotted to follow him. When she entered the corridor, she took the iron door leading to the rooftop with her boom. There was a loud noise, and the entire iron gate was carried by powerful force and shot straight towards Hawking in front. Hawking, who reacted quickly, turned around and grabbed the iron door flying towards him in his hand. Or shit. Jessica looked at her hands in disbelief, then at Hawking, and couldn't help but curse. Hawking put the iron gate aside and made a joke. It seems that you have to be careful to control your power recently, otherwise most people will die if they are hit like just now. Who are you? What's wrong with me? Jessica looked at the 5 clear fingerprints left by Hawking on the iron door that was placed next to the corridor, and finally couldn't help but ask. Hawking replied, I think it would be better if we sit down and have something to eat and talk slowly. I want a burger, no problem. All right, legends, that's it for today. If you're ready for the next chapter, smash that like button and flood the comments right now. Remember, we've got 3 days to prove this story needs to continue. Subscribe so you don't miss the drop, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.